Alright, welcome to episode 26 of tonight's podcast. Hopefully, shortly here we'll have my buddy will be in. If not, well, we're doing it by ourselves. So here we go. I got 3 viewers in. Good, good. I'll start that here in a sec. Let's see here. What's for the first video is exploring with Josh. Secret government facility in the woods abandoned. That will be the first video. It's going to be a pretty good show tonight. I'm hoping you guys will enjoy it. And then hopefully my internet stays good. I'll give him a couple more minutes. Hopefully he actually comes. If not, it's not a big deal. We'll just get the ball rolling. I mean, I sent him the invite code. Oh well. Because if he comes in, he comes in. That's what I said. Like I said. Hopefully you guys noticed I've been reposting old episodes, cleaning them up and stuff for you guys. What did I say the first video was? Oh yeah. Secret government facility in the woods. I think this is an older video. Once I find it, we'll go ahead and play it. plus it gives him time to get in. If he so desires. Might actually have to go to his channel. Okay, here we go. Found it. And if I'm not mistaken, this one kind of looks like the building from Stranger Things. Let me make sure this is the right video. Let's go.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, so here we go.
Hey, what's up, guys? Came across this building in the woods. Happens to be a facility. Closed down in 2014. It opened up in 1990. So it's actually closed down. Opened up in 1990. So it's actually closed down last year. So we're about to go in and explore it. We're coming up to the building right now, actually, in the woods. All right, guys, we're in. Wow. Wow, guys, we already just got here. We just got here, and look at this. Seriously, an old arcade skee ball? That's insane. Just here? It's not every day you go inside an abandoned place and see an old skee ball. Damn. Is there any balls in here? No balls. Oh, wow, what the heck? An old crane machine. That's crazy, huh? An old crane machine? What? Is there any prizes? No prizes. Damn. That's insane. Oh wow, these are spotlights.
Spotlights?
Yes, like 5 spotlights. Damn.
Whoa, look at this.
What is this? What?
What is that?
Dude,
it's a
that's-
Cobra 139.
Dude, we have radios.
This is a radio?
Yeah, these are radios used to like contact people.
I did not know radios took USBs back in the day.
Damn. Wow, guys, there's even more radios. Look at this. Hang on. I can't believe this. We have the handheld walkie-talkies or something. Damn. Dude, these are sick. Oh my god, this is a freaking disco ball, guys. That is sick. Look at it shining through on the floor.
We could party with this.
We could party with that. First aid room. Let's go. Alright. Wow. Wow. It looks like freaking, like an old freaking abandoned asylum. That's what it looks like. It's not though. Okay, but look at the black mold everywhere, guys. That's straight up poison all around us right now.
This is why we need a doctor's mask on.
Yeah. We
Right here.
we need to get our masks on, honestly.
This is crazy.
Anything in here though? Wanna open that up?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Got nothing.
We're about to enter some offices and stuff. Holy crap, guys, look. Now this is insane. It looks like everybody just up and left here. I mean, the files are all over here. I mean, look at the computers are still here. The monitors, 2013. See, it's not that old around here. What do we got for files? Anything like interesting? Oh, we have a mouse, some notebooks. Oh, receipt books actually. Nice. Lots of people's names and files though.
That's data.
All over here. Lots of data. It could have been people who worked here. Who knows? Seriously, it's just another office. I mean, I'm in another office. All their stuff, just thrown. We have over there. I mean, look at this desk. I mean, there's freaking stuff everywhere over here. Who knows how much business was going down here? This chair's probably like 50 bucks. No, we got, oh, this is Big Boss, guys. Look at this, look at this. Flat screen and everything. You know how much money this is worth? Like, honestly, I'm not even screwing around. This is like 200 bucks probably for that. And like I said, we don't take anything. We're just here to explore. And it's amazing, though, what you can find, especially here. Ain't it crazy, though, like, how people just up and leave and just leave stuff abandoned? Like, all this stuff is worth money. A lot of stuff here is worth a lot of money, and people just leave it. I think I don't understand. Like, people's always buying new stuff all the time. We could be giving this stuff and donating it to, like, people who need it, to be honest.
This nice printer
It's a nice Dell printer, I'm not gonna lie.
Printer
But an old monitor, but a nice Dell printer. Actually, look, we have some fax machines, some amazing fans. Nice. Good for the summer. These are sick hallways. I love hallway looks. Any hallway that has like that urban dark look to it, I just freaking love.
This is a little iffy to walk on, so watch out.
Is it? What the fudge? It's wet damage everywhere. Oh, fuck.
Hey, look.
Man.
A treadmill.
A treadmill? What else is
Hey,
there?
what?
Guys, look at this.
Guys, take a...
Didn't even see this. Look at this freaking old record player. It looks so nice at the same time. Look, it has the Beach Boys as their album. This is sick. I love this thing. I can't bend it down. Let me see.
All right, now we got it.
All right. Lots of dirts on it. But I mean, this is an amazing find, guys. A nice record player. So it appears to be that this seems to be the main entrance where people would walk into right here. And here's the desk where they would direct you to go there to the offices or maybe somewhere over here. Is a basement. And we're gonna go in there. Let's go, shall we? Let's get it, man.
All right, so what do we have in there?
I don't know. Oh my god, it smells so bad.
Oh, this is bad. Dude.
Real quick.
All right.
Think.
Okay. Wait.
Oh no, we'll go this way first.
I'm gonna follow it with you.
Alright, guys. Really dark in here. Let's go. So far, there's nothing here. Just completely freaking... all the ceiling tiles just fell down. It's all over the floors.
Dude, this thing's so bad.
Molds everywhere, guys.
This is bad.
Wow, this place is about to collapse.
What is that?
Just fell, man. Scared me. Holy shit. This is pretty much, guys, a room of rust.
Oh, whoa.
But you know what
awful.
this is awful. But if any of you guys have played Silent Hill, just saying, if you guys played Silent Hill, one of my favorite games, you will see that this has a very good Silent Hill look to it.
Yeah, look at this right here, guys.
Yo, seriously, this really is like Silent Hill.
This is crazy.
The rust is on the floor, the rust is up here. If you guys played the game, it looks exactly like the setting we're in right now. So something maybe happened here? Maybe there was an accident.
Yeah.
down here.
Look in. Get the flash.
Oh, what the heck?
What does that say?
Police line do not cross.
Whoa, something must have happened.
Yeah, show that police line.
Let's take a look.
Alright, guys, yeah, right here. Police line do not cross. Something must have happened around here.
Police line in the front?
It's more, look at that. Police line do not cross.
Police line do not cross. This would have been covered right here, so.
Yeah. Something happened, dude. We're going in. Oh god, the floors are sinking in.
Unstable?
Yeah,
Alright, I'm with
only
you,
right
bro.
there. Looks like a bunch of parts to make stuff. Yeah. Like a whole bunch of metal and stuff. Screws and bolts. Could have been like a warehouse or they were building some stuff here. We just seen all those metal pipes. Whoa, guys, look at this. A freaking drum set's over here. That's sick.
Dude, look at this. Drum sets all over.
Wow. Some light down here. Let's go see what's around here.
Some more light.
All right. A lot of light in here. A lot of windows. That's why. Cool. What? Dude, look. A freaking crate. Like a huge crate.
Holy crap.
Dude, we gotta see what's inside.
I'm curious. What the heck?
Hey, let me help you.
Alright.
Yeah, right. Take the top. Oh shit.
That's what the bottom right here is not. Let's see.
So that was cool.
That was cool.
Dude, there's a freaking
Briefcase.
I don't know, briefcase. Oh man, urban exploring to the fullest today.
Alright.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Alright.
I don't know what that is.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's too weird. It's too different.
Hey, I never seen this one.
What is that?
Dude, I have no idea what
You know,
that
It
is.
looks like particles.
Alright guys, we're about to climb the ladder. We're about to go check out the roof and see what we can see. Oh god, this is gonna be dangerous. Let's get it. So yeah, here's how it looks in the back of the place right now. Lots of trash everywhere in the back. So I'm assuming they took everything from the bottom of the rooms that we see in the bottom floors and they just threw it all outside. Got some intercoms. Some, what the heck? I don't even know what that is. Looks like a freaking camera stretching up in the sky. I don't know, that's cool. Yeah, guys, over here, it's even, I like this, the artwork on the chimneys and stuff. I mean, look at that, they're all triangle shapes and old looking. Really, honestly has an asylum look to it, old hospital look. I mean, right here, you can see right here, really gives off that look. I mean, they're just ramps all the way down. Here, let me stand on one. Hopefully it's safe. Alright. Look at this guy. Pretty crazy. The more places I explore, the more I realize how temporary life really is. When there's enough left in a building from its past use, I can definitely get a sense of the people that used the building, how they went upon their work and their lives in those places. I feel like it's my duty to film and document the places I explore before they get demolished. Every building is full of old memories that were once cherished by others.
All right. Up. Ooh. Up, next is the last Nazi secret, the Atom, and I'm gonna say S3 season 2 premiere, the Reactor and Kamler's Jonestown. Here we go.
The last Nazi secret, I went out of my way to document a circumstantial case for the Second World War German specialty research programs into weaponry and other things, much of which have been neglected in the history books ever since, and little of it has been touched by researchers truly going in depth as to what really took place. Much of the archival information and the documentation is still classified or outright missing. In this series, I'm trying to rectify that. I'm trying to build a case strong enough to allow the archives and the various governments that are sitting on much of this information to be compelled to open up, let us research, let us dig in some of the sites. And this year, I have gone to many of these sites specifically to show you exactly where this research took place in order for us to better judge what it could have been. And many of these research programs was overseen and conducted or constructed by a very young and dynamic SS general named Hans Kammler. It seemed whenever the Third Reich needed something built fast and large and in secrecy, they would call on General Kammler. So for this season, I have followed in his footsteps. I have gone through the underground caves, the tunnels, the underground factories, the potential Führer headquarters that was built around Germany, Poland, and Austria. At every turn in every country, I have met with local historians, special researchers who have researched and looked into this for years, the specialists on these areas. I'm trying to compel a red thread through the public narrative and what is actually to be seen on the ground. Witness testimony dating back to the time of the war that does match up with surveillance footage and contemporary information and documentation. This is not about mindless conspiracies. This is about the thousands of people who died creating secrets that we are not privy to today. This is about the miles and miles of secret constructed underground tunnels that are now missing today, being denied by various governments that are still covering up what actually took place. This is about money. This is about war, technology that is probably still in use somewhere today. This is about scientists, about history, legacy, and as it is with all things, it's all about location, location, location. So for season 2 of Last Nazi Secret, I'm going to all the locations, crawl through them, and show you what was there, and I'll tell you what they say is supposed to be there, and you can judge. What do you think? There are a few things one must keep in mind when looking back on the Third Reich. One is that we live in a world where the SS were setting the agenda. And one also needs to remember that it was an organization with deep ties to German industry and a strong belief in capitalism. From the outset of his campaign in the 20s, Hitler courted various big businesses, bankers, successfully. Relationships were made already then, most of which we can follow during the war, leading to a vast complex of special and top-secret research projects. Many of them were controlled by the SS, but even when not, they were still never very far away and could at any point access any other projects or findings. Now make no mistake about it, the SS was a profitable business, and the money was made on obtaining business contracts for the Reich, renting out forced laborers. As the SS ran most of the concentration camp system, they had control over millions of prisoners that were put to work, rented out to businesses, hired by the SS, and everybody made money. Now General Kammler would recruit the best scientists, both known and unknown, for his secret research staff, the Kammlerstab. And it seems that he was everywhere, building everything. Regardless where I went, from the submarine pens, V2 test sites, to underground Führer headquarters, his name kept turning up. In the final years of the war, both he and Himmler both knew what was at stake. The Allied bombing of German cities and industry made it critical to build enormous underground complexes for construction. Also, Hitler's various headquarters needed to be reinforced, and much of the secret research was decentralized for safety as well. Yet in the middle of all this underground construction, we still find special S-4HAB construction projects. Following briefings to Hitler and contemporary claims that two of them were to be large headquarters for Hitler and his staff, that would be Project Riese and the S3 in Jonastal near Ordorf, Germany. Both had 26 or 28,000 forced laborers and an enormous amount of resources were spent on both sites. Hitler was briefed on both repeatedly, and yet, interestingly enough, there's practically nothing to see in either one of these sites. However, something is missing from the official story, and something is missing that can still be found. And after what I have so far seen, I have doubts that either one of them were actually to be headquarters for Hitler at all. I'm going to spend some time on both of these locations and show you why I know something is being hidden. But to this we must add, there's huge underground factories being built by Dr. Kammler, some far larger, and yet built with far fewer laborers and resources. In this season I will show you those and all of the S4 Harvest sites today, and we will dive more into nuclear research projects and programs that may not seem to be as feeble as we've been told post-war. I wager that the top leaders within the SS knew of the later part of the war. They were losing it, and they needed to make plans for the survival of their ideology, their technology, and many investments to protect their money and their futures. And I can promise you, they did all of these. Now, besides the forced labor pool and the numbers, we also know that organization Tod, whom oversaw many of the construction projects in the Reich, was run by Albert Speer after Fritz Tod died in a plane accident, and it was managed by Xavier Dorsch. And from his post-war testimony, we know that the Germans had expertly and precisely calculated exactly what was needed of material, labor, and time in order to build anything, anywhere, and in any material underground whatsoever. And thousands of private companies were also hired and paid for their services in these projects. So, from this we can gauge what would have been possible to build in the various special construction projects, especially when we will compare them to all of those that has been constructed and finished and was in use. So I visited many of those in order to show you and thereby giving you a better idea of what was possible and what was actually done. As for the special research in some of these, we'll get back to those. But I promise you, at the end of Season 2, you will know exactly where to start digging, if of course you could find the permission to do so. However, before we visit Jonastal and the Project S3, the most top-secret project of the wartime Germany, under control, of course, of General Hans Kammler, I want to go somewhere else. I want to go to Gottorf, to Kurt Diebner's nuclear reactor. Kurt Diebner worked for the Heereswaffenamt trying to develop a nuclear weapon for Germany. And this was the first reactor under the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute right next to the proving grounds of Kummersdorf. In the middle of the German armaments industrial complex at Oranienburg lay the factory Auerwerke. It produced uranium oxide, amongst other things. It was founded by Auer von Welsbach in 1885 and had from then produced various radioactive products, including that of extracting thorium oxide after Otto Hahn's discovery. From 1934, the company belonged to Degussa AG Frankfurt with over 10,000 employees in the armaments industry. Otto Hahn discovered nuclear fission in 1938. Before the war, all research institutes were reunified under Nicholas Rehl, who, along with Otto Hahn, they both understood the importance of the nuclear discovery, both economic and militarily. In the spring of 1939, they met with the Army Research Office to discuss the feasibility of the practical use of nuclear fission. The Army requested that Auerwerke provide several tons of uranium compounds from their stocks. They in turn immediately built a production plant to produce uranium oxide for the Army's testing. By 1940, the first 240 grams of high pure uranium metal was delivered. In 1945, when the facility fell to the Russians, 330 tons of uranium materials and 7 tons of metallic uranium was found. This was the material along with other German scientists, were brought to Russia to accomplish this. It is safe to say that the Russian nuclear program leading to their bomb development was founded by German materials, uranium, and scientists. Post-war speculations have now begun to surface that the U.S. nuclear bomb project also benefited at a greater extent than previously believed from German research, blueprints, and materials of which we now know there were a lot more than we have been led to believe. Now not far from where von Braun tested his first rockets at the Army test range at Kummersdorf. On this property, the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, working along with the Army Research Center, built the first nuclear reactor at Gottow. The program was run by Erich Schumann, chief of the Heereswaffenamt and an explosives expert, and Kurt Diebner, nuclear scientist. They were both party men, and they were looking for a self-sustaining nuclear reaction, but on the fourth trial test, it began to run away from them, and they had to halt the experiment, but certainly not the program. They were both looking for a bomb. On May 8, 1945, the day the war ended, the Russians arrived here at Gottow and packed everything up and sent it to Moscow. Of course, by this time, Diebner was conducting his tests far from here, near Jonastal, in fact, and most of the papers pertaining to the German test program are still classified. But clearly the Germans had far more fissionable material than what was alluded to by the Alsos teams. And a further note is that in 1944, two British scientists, the head of the Manhattan Project, noted that the main goal of the atomic bomb project was not to keep the Germans from getting it, but to keep the Russians from getting it. Seems much more likely that a deal could be done with German scientists and with Dr. Kammler.
You can clearly see the barbed wire is an indication that this is where we're going. What a terrible build quality. The Germans made it nice and round and expensive. Built by the Russians. This is the reactor.
Yeah, it's hollow. You can look inside.
Won't you? I'm just after talking about it for so many years, then here it finally is. And it's so small, relatively speaking.
The strange thing is there's no radiation. It's only outside on this side.
I mean, there would have been a false floor because...
I think here was floor, then wooden house was here,
Yeah.
and here in this concrete case there must be the reactor.
There was a round reactor,
Yeah, it was
and then
round.
with the rods, he used the paraffin here.
Yeah, paraffin. They want heavy water, but there was a lack of heavy water at this time, so they used paraffin, I think, and this uranium cubes. And it was refined uranium. Later we can measure and I show you.
Yeah. It's just interesting that there's no radiation inside.
Yeah. They used round housing, I think.
Yeah.
think it's on
What's that thing?
old photos. That's Russian or East German
Post-war.
technology.
Yeah, but the Russians removed everything in here.
Yeah, they take all with them to Russia.
It's just amazing. It's so small, and the walls are so thin, and it was still a nuclear reactor.
Das war ich glaube, mit schwerem Wasser gefüllt. Das ist die Frontseite. Da war eine kleine Bahn und hier war ein Aluminiumkessel drin.
So dann in Aluminium.
Ja, der war aus 99,5% reines Aluminium gemacht. War ungefähr 1 Zentimeter dünn.
Ja.
Und innen drin war der komplett nochmal mit dickem Holz ausgeschlagen. Und dann
Holz ganz wie die Reaktor
Fässer, wie Fässer.
in Chicago, was auch in Holz gebaut.
Ja, in dem Aluminiumkessel war alles Holz, die Wand. So, und an dem Deckel hingen ganz viele Metallschnüre. Das war kein Stahl, also spezielles Metall. Und da hingen, ich glaube, 5 cm dicke Würfel aus Uran. Und beim ersten Versuch, ich glaube 200 oder
Ja.
ich weiß
Die
es
hatten
nicht.
Zu wenig.
Ja, auf jeden Fall, das wurde dort rein und der Aluminiumkessel wurde dann mit Paraffin gefüllt.
Ja.
Und in der Mitte, dann wurde der hier reingesenkt und in der Mitte wurde eine Sonde, eine Neutronenquelle reingesetzt. Und dann hat man diese Neutronenquelle aktiviert und hat dann gemessen, ob eine vermehrte Strahlung durch den Beschuss der Uranwürfel stattfindet. Beim ersten Versuch waren es nur 2% Steigerung, aber bei dem letzten Versuch mit größeren Uranwürfeln gab es eine Steigerung von, ich glaube, bis zu 8%.
So, die hatte Reaktion hier.
Die fing an zu starten, ja. Und der Kessel wurde immer heißer und die haben Panik bekommen und haben ihn dann aus dem Kühlwasser rausgehoben mit dem Kran und haben ihn da vorne abgestellt. Weil sie hatten gedacht, der wird immer heißer, den müssen wir jetzt wegbringen.
Die wollte nicht, dass die Reaktion wegrennt.
Ja,
Also,
sie wussten nicht, was sie tun. Sie haben das
Ja.
rausgenommen, aus dem Kühlwasser raus. Und dann ist der Kessel dort, fing an zu schmelzen und ist aufgegangen. Und dann, die Schlacke finden wir heute noch. Wir finden auch Thoriumreste drin. Und bei dem Unfall sind dann 3 Leute verstrahlt worden, die sind dann gestorben.
okay. So, war da auch ein Brand hier? Ja, von Brand gesprochen.
Es war nur eine Schmelze.
And on these were the floor and when the house was above here. Is there any reason why the walls are orange?
I don't know. Maybe some iron particles in the color.
So, das war Teil von die Originale gebaut, ne? Ja, das habe ich, diesen eine Bild. Ja, das ist ein eine schwarz-weiß Bild auf die
Aber guck mal, du siehst den Zustand von dieser Wand hier, ne?
Ja.
Ist gut. So, deutscher Beton geht eigentlich nicht kaputt. Und diese Beschädigung hier, da gibt es Gerüchte, dass das mit dieser Schmelze zu tun hat.
So von die Heiße.
Ja, also durch die Hitze ist der Beton geschädigt worden.
Aber die Kran hast die ganze Reaktorcore hier gestellt.
Genau, der hat sie hier hingestellt. Hier stand das drin.
Träger.
Hier ist der vom Kran, ja.
So that's where the crane. This is where the crane was.
Yeah, the pole from the crane and the
Fundament.
crane goes inside the house.
Wow. So they put the reactor core right there. Do you think, because that was hot and melting, that has something to do with the destruction of the... But of course all the papers are in Moscow. So is that have a radioactivity to it, since that was closer to the core?
We can check it.
So what was that for? That was for, that's an oval pipe? Never seen a pipe that was oval before.
Maybe this tank was
Yeah,
here.
so went here.
I don't know.
So this would lead into the reactor core.
Possible. Yeah.
Yeah, the building is sort of symmetrical with the wings on both sides. That thing.
And I think this piece here, also on the other side, was mounted to keep the sand on place.
Yes, because it wasn't built at the same time, because
Yeah, I
they
think
would have
so.
built it into.
Because here is nothing. Maybe here radiation doesn't matter, only on this side. And
Honestly, this is the first time after having talked about Deepness reactor core for so long that I actually get to see it. And as you can tell, it is a very, very small building. You got to think about it, this was a nuclear reactor, and when you go to a nuclear reactor today, this is not what you expect to see. It is a small, square, barely reinforced building. Das ist nicht dein erstes Mal hier.
Ich bin seit 12 Jahren hier.
12 Jahre hier. Ist es verändert?
Nein.
Nein, sie haben
Ist gebaut für 1000 Jahre.
And you're still alive. You've been here for 12 years, on and off, and so, okay. Have you gotten any kids since you started coming here?
Kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no.
With a small picture camera. Yeah.
No children.
No.
Kein neues Kinder.
Nein, nein.
Aber Radioaktivität.
Ja.
This is what makes history worth coming and seeing and remembering, and this is a place you guys really need to know about, because this was probably the first reactor that was ever built.
where Dibna was testing radiation. And they had a semi-meltdown here that they had to lift out the core and put it down on the ground. And we're going to do some measurements, because if I didn't, you guys would crucify me. They would. In the middle of the woods, and this is just disappearing quietly. But it's estimated that the sandbank was built up here to shield from radiation, which makes perfect sense. Although if we remember, the Chicago pile was pretty much just built in wood. But it's not every day, almost on my birthday, that I can crawl up and say I'm going to go inside the core of a nuclear reactor. So I have 0.3 Sivas, which is not really a lot given where we are. Point 0.3 here. This metal. Okay, now here are 0.6. But it's still not overwhelming considering. Telling me here the ground is closer to radioactive. I'm outside, there's absolutely nothing out here. So we'll go over here where they put down the reactor core after it started overheating. And I'm just wondering if the metal here outside we have 0.6. And this is where they put down the core. Alright, okay, alright, we're getting there. Now we're getting up to 0.21. 30. 36. You're going to keep growing? You're just going to be 42? Okay, I'm just going to leave it there then. Is that bad?
What?
54.
Microsieverts. Yeah.
Well, when your Geiger counter start flashing, is that bad? 63.
What spot is here?
0.63. Should I worry that I'm sitting at this flashing Geiger counter with my testicles pointing towards whatever is setting it off? Is that a problem?
Stand up! Oh my god! The testicles in great danger.
Well, I don't have to. What do you got? Ooh. You got 7.8. What is the current level in Hiroshima today?
Oh, I don't
They
know.
cleaned it up, didn't they? Level above ground, up here. So they put it down here, they put it down over there. Mm-hmm. Oh, we have more research. Yeah, now I'm 24. Gamma.
Okay,
What do you got?
what we can do here is gamma spectroscopy. This is a Berkeley Nucleonics SAM 935, and to show you, these are refined uranium pieces in the soil here. And refined, you can see it's not natural uranium, because uranium 238 has a half-life of 4.4 billion years, and when this decays, thorium, protactinium, another uranium, thorium, radium, and so on, and the final element is lead-206. So all elements are inside natural uranium ore, but when they refined it, they used this uranium-238, and in this time only the thorium can build up. The others, latest here with 245,000 years, cannot build up in this short time. So we cannot measure radium or the other thorium. So when I switch to the others, and what it do is to count the energy levels of the isotopes. Every isotope has a distinctive mixture of energies. Yeah? Here are the high energies at 2 mega electron volts, and the lowest is about 20 kilo electron volts. And if this would be natural uranium ore, you see around here 4 fingers, the radium fingers, or peaks. We can use analysis tool, peak identify. And what we see here is the thorium-234 peaks. This one is not sure, but this one is sure. Here are already some radium-226 built up. Bismuth or europium is a false peak. There's no europium here. Yeah.
So we know this is definitely the uranium from the reactor.
That's definitely refined uranium. Yeah.
And the radiation level here is it within safe limits?
It's absolutely safe, yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of beeping going on. So you say, now this is where they put down the core after the meltdown.
Yeah.
But inside the actual reactor, there's not really anything in there.
There's nothing. Maybe here we have some of the soil. I think this is the uranium soil. When you put your Geiger counter on it, maybe you can measure it. Not all pieces show higher radiation, but maybe this piece. There's a lot of beta radiation, so sometimes it depends on which side you measure. Oh, it's higher. That's elevated.
Yes, now it's crawling
sure.
quite quickly, yeah. 91, 92, too.
No, yes.
Oh yeah, now it's...
We can use.
The actual laboratory is over there.
Yeah.
Is it still there?
I show you.
Good. I love people who say that. All right, so
This space solo.
I'm gonna spend my birthday going inside a nuclear reactor from before World War II. That sounds like such a good idea. Of all the weird places you guys have seen me crawl into, this... I'm so glad there's a ladder. Now, why is there a ladder leading into a reactor? Oh, very soft down here. You say... There's a lot of fucking mosquitoes, I'll say that. There are no pipes, no nothing leading here. Well, there's a little bit of a pipe. Was war diesen Hohl hier? Was das für Wasser evakuieren oder?
Ja.
Well, if you ever had any doubt that I'm willing to go the extra mile for history, this is my birthday, and I'm standing inside Kurt Diebner's nuclear reactor in Gotto. Never thought this is what I would be doing. Well, permanently didn't think this is what I would be doing, and didn't think I was going to be doing it on my birthday. I thought it was going to involve cigars and drinks, but here we are. inside the core of the first reactor. It's kind of cool in here. And my Geiger counter's on, is not going off, which is more interesting. So what is under the floor here? I mean, you got mud. What's under the mud?
Concrete.
Just concrete, yeah. Yeah, there's...
But nobody who knows.
I have a shovel in the car. See, there's literally no radiation in here. This is actually safer than outside, which is strange. So the pipe is metal in the corner. Okay, the pipe in the corner is a little high, no. Has a little higher radiation, still very little. It's not even climbing. There's 6 here. Still not really anything. Nine, 12. Not much, like 15. This is the wall where on the other side they put down the reactor core when it started melting. But on the inside, nothing. What interesting things are you finding?
The same as before.
You're finding the same interesting things as before. That's good. When you get the same test result, you're on the right track. It's when you get a different test result, you're on... And as you can clearly see, the wall is really not very thick. So if they built up these mounds on the other side to hold in the sand shielding of the sandbank, they only did it on 2 sides, which is interesting. It only takes 2 mosquitoes to make you a bad day. There's a ceramic pipe here in the ground that is leading up there to the reactor here. Old pipe in the ground, outlet there, and then you have ceramic pipe. Yeah, the only way for this pipe to have a function would be to evacuate heavy water into the forest somewhere, in a ditch somewhere. The Kaiser Wilhelm Institute and Kummersdorf Proving Grounds were practically on the same property, and not very far from the nuclear reactor site is the first of the rocket test stand buildings. What do you got here? Oh, so this is just a passage under the, oh, this is technical tunnel, or technical. And you see the weatherproofing. This used to be the roof that is slowly coming down, hanging on its rebar. Ooh. Well, hello there. This looks interesting. Remember, they tested everything from weapons, projectiles, explosives here, and rockets. Jesus, I know what this is. I've seen this. I've seen this in Lower Silesia. Ich habe so wie ein Fenster gesehen in Lower Silesia, in einer Fabrik. Nicht weit von Ludwigsdorf. Was?
Eine Brennkammer. Hier haben Sie auch wieder mit Treibstoff Düsen drin.
Das war ein Teststand, ne? Für die Wiesen, die waren noch durchnummeriert, 1 bis 4.
This was a test stand for rockets.
Yeah, yeah. So, they tested 1, 2, here, and 3, and 4 on the
Jesus, this looks like what I saw pictures of in Lower Silesia. Wow. You would observe from the windows on the side. And you see down here, there's a lot more of these test places. And here's the back of it. So the testing would take place in there. And then from here, you would leak the fuel, oxygen, whatever, into the rockets. Very, very simple. And this is the other room. You see how the window has been bricked up on this side. And you have more of the holes to lead fuel in. Wow. And this is not even the big Von Braun test site.
These are the small rocket test stands, very close to the nuclear reactor site. I wanted you to see them. There will be a dedicated episode, of course, to the rocket test stands and the proving grounds of Kummersdorf. There's also a much larger test stand here that looks very different than to the one we see in Austria. This was the last of Von Braun's test stands before he moved to Peenemünde. But we're here today looking for something else. Now, the German nuclear research was real, but it had to leave here because this is too close to Berlin, and the Allied bombing effort was getting a little too close for comfort. So where did they move to? Near another military test facility, near the S3 project that was claimed to be Hitler's headquarters. And yet here, in March 1945, very credible witnesses saw something that was very special and very suspect given the circumstances and the location. Here's Clara Werner's story.
Behind me in the castle, there was a young lady named Clara Werner. She witnessed this enormous explosion that lit up her room as if it was daylight. And the next day, many of the people around had nosebleeds, and the SS doctors were extra busy. Now, what makes her extra interesting and credible is she's not just he said, she said. She's not just a person that we have heard of. She's an actual person. We've seen interviews with her. Her story didn't change. She was at an age where she was coherent and clear enough that she understood what she was seeing and how to describe it. Her story never changed throughout her life. We've seen her on television and heard her on the radio. She describes these details of this test, this weapons test of enormous proportion and light in the middle of the night. And several other witnesses have then testified to what happened after that. And to me, I have less and less doubt
that Deepna tested a nuclear device here. Not the Hiroshima-sized bomb, obviously, but a smaller tactical nuclear plutonium bomb. And after all, they're also experts in shape charges, so there are different ways of skinning a cat. And I think they found one here. And I think some of this technology made its way to America. And from what I'm hearing, it made its way to America before we tested our nuclear device, which leaves us to think maybe that's one of the reasons nobody wants to talk about what happened here, because maybe this technology made it to America before we had ours ready, and that opens up a whole another can of worms. And clearly here, seen over the back of the castle, you can see in the distance the very large German test proving grounds not that many miles away. It is clear that if something large had been tested at this location, it would easily have lit up the castle and been seen from here. I spent some time trying to get in contact with the German military in order to be allowed to search the premises. I'm still waiting for a response. I also tried to take a walk across the wire, however there's a lot of surveillance, a lot of active surveillance, very active electronic counter-surveillance and measures and counter-drone measures in that particular area. Incidentally, aerial photography from that time confirms a very large explosion took place on these proving grounds and are further backed up by reports to Stalin found in the Russian archives. Down there is the closest thing to the strange anomalies I can get, because there's something very strange in the way, and there's a lot of military around here, including communication, so I can't get there. Last season we spent a lot of time on Project Riese, and we will go back there this year with new information. But one of the most important construction sites, which many of you will never have heard of, took place here in Jonastal, near Ohrdruf in Germany. Sonderbauvorhabe S3, supervised, of course, by General Hans Kammler. It was a project just like Project Riese. One could say it was a sister project. Same amount of forced labors, resources. It was reported to be a Hitler's headquarters, and yet today there's very little to show for it. However, that is very far from where the story ends. Kurt Deepna had a nuclear research lab near here. Herrens Waffesamt, for which he worked, tested specialty weapons here at the proving grounds, still today run by the German military, and very much off limits. There are also eyewitness accounts from locals to senior U.S. Army officers testifying to having seen so much more. And a local engineer and researcher seemingly have found 2 nuclear bombs hidden in the underground tunnels, and very serious reports have emerged that a nuclear weapon was tested here during the war. Everything about this project and what we are being told makes no sense whatsoever, especially when squaring it up against what we now know. And yet it started all the way back in 1937 with the construction of the largest underground communication center in Germany, Amt 10, underground, 3 floors, each floor 4,000 square meters, the entrances disguised and protected by the SS. It was completely self-sufficient, even had its own well. The cables were specially secured and can communicate outside the country as well. It was destroyed after the war. However, several other similar underground communication centers were also constructed. Much more was constructed here, many more resources were spent here than we see today. The Jonastal tunnel system, as we know it today, consists of 25 tunnels in various stages of construction, most of them still in their raw state. The site was documented and photographed in 1945 after the war, leaving us the only real-time photos of the construction site. No documents have been found. Between 19 and 26,000 forced laborers worked here. Many thousands died. Also many thousands skilled workers worked here, and tons of high technical equipment was delivered to the area and found by the Russians, whom documented it. What the Americans found here is still classified. But if only a work site was found, why the secrecy? Why the many labors? These tunnels we see today have been estimated to have been constructed by a mere 500 people alone. However, as with Project Riese, the mystery is not what we see, but what we do not see. Inside the adjacent military testing grounds, many witnesses have pointed out that they saw, during the war or after during Russian occupation, extremely large completed underground complexes, something far more fitting with the large workforce that was employed here during the war. So let's take a look at what's here today. Then we will meet with several experts and historians and try to find out, shed some light on what actually happened here. And I have to say, over the coming month, we discovered some extremely surprising things even I did not expect.
So finally I have arrived here by Ohrdruf, Jonastal, where the S3 project was built. What we're looking at here is some 25 stollen or tunnels into the mountain. The official story is this was a redoubt for the Nazi party. There's Amt 10, a huge underground communication bunker that has been destroyed, of course. This was supposed to be the new Führerhauptquartier, where Hitler could go and defend towards the end of the war. However, there's something more to this. There's a lot more to this. Of course, General Kammler was involved in the construction and design of this area. But you have all these tunnels that are not that long from what I can see. You had 26,000 forced laborers worked here. 5,000 or so of them died. But there's more. There's so much more. On the face of it, it was a Führerhauptquartier, supposedly. Just like Project Riese was just a Führerhauptquartier. 28,000 prisoners dug tunnels into the mountains where everybody could hide and live happily ever after. That was the same story for Riese. Same thing we see here. In fact, there's a lot of similarities, except when I started looking at the tunnels out of Riese, none of them looks in any way like they were made for habitation or for Hitler to live in or any other dignitaries. They look for construction, for work, for something else. And remember, Ohrdruf is not far from here. Diebner and Schumann had a test facility right down here. You can still hear the military shooting there today. That is where they tested several small tactical nuclear weapons, supposedly. But that makes this rather suspect.
Historian George Rebiensky has spent a large part of his life trying to put together what actually happened here during the war, collecting archival information, researching all the various archives, and taking statements and testimony, trying to put it together. And he runs the Jonastal-Verein.
S3 ist die Bezeichnung für ein Sonderbauvorhaben der Nazis ganz am Ende des Krieges. Offizieller Beginn 6. November 1944. Wenn man heute über S3 spricht, wird in der Regel gesagt, hier wurde ein Führerhauptquartier gebaut, im Jonastal. Es wurden 25 Stollen in die Felsen getrieben und die Baustelle ist nicht fertig geworden, weil die Amerikaner auf ihrem Vormarsch so schnell da waren, dass man es nicht geschafft hat. Das ist die offizielle Version. Wenn man sich S3 aber näher ansieht und zum Beispiel sieht, dass hier 26.000 Häftlinge gearbeitet haben, über 900 zivile Baukräfte aus ganz Deutschland und Österreich, 80 Führungskräfte, Ingenieure, Architekten und so weiter, dann kann man sich schlecht vorstellen, dass das alles ist, was im Jonastal gebaut wurde. Hier sind noch nicht mal 3000 Meter Stollenvortrieb. Und das ist zu wenig für so viele Produktionskräfte. Das ist ja einer der wichtigsten Hinweise. Dr. Ingenieur Hans Kammler, ein SS-General, der übrigens schon in Auschwitz am Konzentrationslager mitgearbeitet hat, sich bei der SS sehr schnell hochgedient hat und wirklich ein Organisationstalent war. Ja? Sicherlich hier im übelsten Sinne, aber das konnte er wirklich und er war verantwortlich für die komplette Untertageverlagerung der deutschen Rüstungsproduktion. Man hat ihn später verantwortlich gemacht für den Bau dieser Raketen in Nordhausen, vorher Peenemünde. Und er war sogar verantwortlich für das Verschießen dieser Raketen. Also er hat eine eigene Einheit gehabt, die am Kanal gestanden hat und die Raketen verschossen hat. Ja? Da ging es um die Zielgenauigkeit und die Reichweiten und so weiter. Und das allein sagt uns, Dr. Kammler, der hier verantwortlich war, nachweislich für S3, hatte überhaupt keine Zeit, ein Führerhauptquartier zu bauen. Ja. Niemals im Leben. Also es wäre auch von der Aufgabenstellung, ich sage mal, seiner nicht würdig gewesen. Ja? Ein Führerhauptquartier ist sicherlich hier entstanden, aber eher so als Nebenprodukt zum einen, bei so vielen Leuten und vielleicht auch zur Tarnung für andere Dinge, die hier gebaut wurden.
Ja.
Und wenn man sich die Aussagen von beteiligten Personen ansieht, ehemalige zivile Bauarbeiter, ehemalige Häftlinge, Ingenieure, aber auch Militärs, selbst die Aussagen der Amerikaner, dann entsteht ein völlig anderes Bild. Hier wird über Dinge berichtet, die mit dem Jonastal an sich wenig zu tun haben können. Ja? Also selbst die zivilen Bauarbeiter berichten von fertiggestellten Anlagen. Die Anlagen waren fertig, es lag Parkett drin, es war möbliert, es war unmittelbar vor der Übergabe. Solche Aussagen. Oder Elektriker, die über Stollentiefen von bis zu 900 Metern berichten, die wir hier in dieser Anlage nicht sehen. Der längste Stollen ist 176 Meter.
Ja, die Geschichte von die Elektriker war interessant. Der war beim Russe.
Der Elektriker hat gesagt, er hätte an einem Stollenbereich gearbeitet, bei dem der längste Stollen 900 Meter tief war. Jetzt sage ich aber, ein Elektriker muss das eigentlich einschätzen können. Denn ein Elektriker geht mit der Rolle, er muss ja da Kabel verlegen und er weiß, wenn die Rolle alle ist, in 100 Meter um, 200 Meter um. Und er musste ja jedes Material auch in den entsprechenden Lagern holen. Man musste dafür unterschreiben, die Firmen haben ja hier Geld verdient, das war ja kein Lobby für die. Ja. Und er muss also einschätzen können, ob dieser Stollen 900 oder 90 Meter tief war. Ja. Und wenn er sagt 900 Meter, dann hat er da einen guten Grund für.
Ja, aber er war nicht hier. Die Russe hat er so an eine andere Stelle gebracht.
Offiziell bekannt sind nur die Anlagen im Jonastal. Ja. Das, was an Aussagen dieser Zeugen vorhanden ist, hatte ich gesagt, zeigt ja was völlig anderes. Ja. Und wenn Dr. Kammler involviert ist in diese Organisation hier, dann geht es in der Regel auch um was sehr, sehr Wichtiges.
Ja.
And here you have remains of a building. That was part of the construction. The tunnels were up here. But there's no doubt they made vast amount of tunnels. There's no doubt forced slave laborers died here. That's the simple part. Tunnels blasted into this side of the hill. Overlooking the valley. Here where the trains would come up, supply cement to and from. And you see rocks lying around here. All been worked, manufactured. And of course, I don't have to tell you that it was all eventually taken over by the Russians and blown up. That's by now a standard. Although the area was liberated by Patton's Third Army. Again, it is a strange place to build tunnels this high up overlooking a valley. The trains would run down there. But why would you work up here exposed on a hillside? Not like you could cover this up from Allied aircraft.
Dieses Projekt war top secret. Das Tal war komplett abgesperrt. Es gab riesen Zäune ringsherum. Es gab 2 Sperrkreise. Ja. An den Felsen saßen SS-Leute mit Maschinengewehren. Also hier kam keine Maus rein. Ja. Häftlinge und Zivilarbeiter durften sich nicht begegnen, nicht miteinander reden. Was ist mit den Stollen im Jonastal? Was sollte das werden? Von der Bauweise her ist es schwierig zu sagen, weil es eben noch nicht fertig war. Ja? Es gibt aber Aussagen von Personen aus dem Dunstkreis von Himmler, ja, zum Beispiel Grothmann, sein Stabschef, die klar sagen, das sollte ein Zugangs- und Versorgungsbauwerk werden für Anlagen, die schon da waren. Ja. Und es ist durchaus anzunehmen, dass die ersten Stollen in Richtung Arnstadt, die schon sehr viel weiter fortgeschritten waren vom Bau her, vielleicht für die Aufnahme des Oberkommandos der Wehrmacht dienen sollten. Nur zu dem Zeitpunkt Ende Februar, als die Wehrmacht anfing hier umzusetzen, hierher zu kommen, waren die Stollen noch nicht fertig. Und nun wurde der verantwortliche Dr. Kammler gefragt, ja, wo sollen wir denn da hin? Ja? Und Kammler muss gesagt haben, das ist ihnen egal, wir müssen sich Unterkünfte suchen, hier wäre nur ganz wenig Platz und das, was hier gemacht würde, wäre sehr viel wichtiger als das Oberkommando der Wehrmacht. Dann frage ich mich aber, was ist hier gemacht worden? Und dann muss man wieder die Aussagen von denen nutzen, die sicherlich kein Beweis sind, aber die ja dabei waren. Ja. Wenn Henry Bick, ein Berliner Jude, der später auch in die USA emigriert ist, uns in einem Interview sagt, er hätte eigentlich vor den Stollen gearbeitet, musste aber ab und zu Teile in den Werk tragen, die für eine Produktion gebraucht wurden. Und behauptet, diese Produktionsanlage, die wäre ungefähr 150 Meter tief im Stollen gewesen. Und dann 50 bis 60 Meter lang, 25 Meter breit, 12 Meter hoch. Dann fragen wir uns, wo soll das gewesen sein? Die Frage ist, kennen wir überhaupt alle Stollen? Und Henry Bick hat uns erklärt, die Teile, die er reingebracht hat, die wurden dort heiß gemacht und weiterverarbeitet. Und es gab viele Einrichtungsgegenstände, es gab Chemikalien und vieles andere mehr. Also er hat das mit eigenen Augen gesehen. Ja. Die Frage muss man hier stellen. Selbst die Amerikaner, die amerikanischen Truppen der 3. US-Armee, die hier ankommen, berichten ja über Anlagen, die sie scheinbar gesehen haben. GIs berichten heute noch bei Veteranentreffen, dass sie Wache gestanden haben vor Produktionsanlagen im Untergrund. Ja, sie berichten in ihren Reports zum Beispiel über getarnte Fabriken, in denen V1 produziert wurde, in denen wohl an V3 gearbeitet wurde. Ja. Was haben die gesehen? Nun befinden sich diese Sachen auf dem Truppenübungsplatz, der heute noch aktiv ist, auf dem man nicht einfach gehen kann und bohren kann. Ja? Man bekommt ja sowieso so gut wie nie eine Genehmigung, irgendwas aufzugraben oder anzubohren. Und auf dem Truppenübungsplatz schon gar nicht. Ja. Da haben wir parallele Aussagen. Es gibt also auch Aussagen von Häftlingen, die berichten, sie hätten in einer Raketenproduktion gearbeitet. Wir haben Aussagen von französischen Häftlingen, die immer wieder gesagt haben, sie hätten Planierungsarbeiten gemacht und es wären Stahlgerüste aufgestellt worden, wo sie vermutet haben, da sollten Raketen starten. Und diese Behauptungen, die gehen ja bis in die Zeit der DDR rein, wo Elektriker, die für die Sowjets gearbeitet haben, dann eben sagen, sie wären auf unterirdischen Straßen in Objekte gebracht worden, die sie technisch betreut haben und die komplett mit Siemens-Technik zum Beispiel ausgerüstet waren. Das ist ja Siemens-Technik, Siemens-Elektrik hatten die Sowjets nicht. Ja? Also die müssen da auch eine alte Anlage gefunden haben, die sie nachgenutzt haben, wo sie ihre Panzer reingestellt haben, was auch immer das war. Ob sie da ein Reparaturwerk hatten oder die zahlenmäßig verstecken wollten, weil sie nicht in Verträge gepasst haben, das weiß kein Mensch. Ja? Und als der sowjetische General hier 1994 diesen Platz verließ und die Bundeswehr übernahm, hat er ja auch nicht umsonst gesagt, ihr werdet euch noch wundern, was ihr hier alles finden werdet. Ja? Also es gibt viel, viel Mysteriöses, es gibt Vermutungen, aber keine Beweise, weil noch nicht mal zur einfachen Baustelle im Jonastal originale Dokumente vorhanden sind. Die sind von den Führungskräften, von den Baustätten mitgenommen worden und es weiß bis heute niemand, wo die hingekommen sind. Sind sie vernichtet worden, haben die Alliierten ihnen die abgenommen, liegen die in irgendwelchen Archiven. Ja? Die müssen noch nicht mal geheim sein, aber viele Archive haben so viele Dokumente, also deutsche Beuteakten, dass sie überhaupt nicht aufnehmen können. Ja? Ja. In London im Archiv, da
aber das sind die meiste von den Dokumenten, was die Amerikaner hierher gefunden hat nach dem Krieg und die letzten Monate vom Krieg, das ist alles weg, vermisst und, oder geheim.
Ja. Aber es ist durchaus zu vermuten, dass auch Unterlagen geheim bleiben, auch heute noch. ja, 76 Jahre nach der Befreiung
Ja.
Dieser Lager hier, dann fragt man sich schon, was ist so wichtig und so brisant, dass man es nicht zeigen kann. Ja? Und
And you see the different rock layers, which is rather fascinating. Especially, I suppose, if you're a geologist. I'm back to my original question. This was a Führerhauptquartier and support buildings for the government. Why are you building a tunnel entrance all the way up here? In plain view of aerial reconnaissance, the route just circling these few tunnels here is about 8 kilometers long. The whole area, which I would suppose be reminiscent of the Speergebiet, is a 20-kilometer circle. And you clearly see this is like walking on loose gravel on a hillside. It's not the most fun place in the world. Could not have been a good place to work for the forced laborers. Mountain, rock. This is such a strange place to want to build something secret. At least here you can clearly see the embankment. The earth and rock have been moved up since the rails for the trains would run here. The trains with equipment, cement, taking rocks to and from. And there's entrance to tunnel number 5. But this little plateau we have several pictures of. So again, this is fairly straightforward. They were digging tunnels into the mountain. Lots of support trains, lots of workers, so tunnels. So this is the remains of tunnel entrance 5. Now these they blew up very well. And given the layer of rock here, I could see why that would be fairly easy to collapse. I could also see why it would be fairly easy to excavate. This is the remains of the compressor station for the air for the drills. Then they would funnel that air through pipes over onto the work sites on this side and that side. The compressors themselves has of course long gone. They're somewhere in Russia still running, I hope. But in the ground you can still see the pipes from under the road and up onto the mountainside. The pressured air was funneled into the jackhammers the workers and forced laborers would use to dig out these tunnels. Later, when we get inside the tunnels, you can still see some of these pipes bent and broken, scattered towards some of the caves. And this is how the site looked when it was eventually found in April 1945. However, before that, it gets stranger. On April 2nd, 1945, Patton's Third Army started their march straight towards Thuringia. During Operation Eclipse, this operation was originally envisaged to be carried out by an airborne assault, but Patton insisted he could get there faster and bypassed any obstacle, even the surrender negotiations of other troops, and did not stop until he reached his objective. The U.S. intelligence had obtained 25 different locations where it was expected the dignitaries from the Reich might be, and most of them was located here in Thüringen. Amstadt and Ohrdruf was on top of the list. It was listed that Hitler would move to an unfinished underground headquarters codenamed S3 with 5 underground levels. But first Patton's army had found Amt 10. The SS had moved in there in the autumn 1944, and on March 18th much of the general staff had relocated to the area here as well from Berlin. Paul Silver from the 89th was among the Americans here, and on a special detail he and others entered a huge underground bunker through 2 glass doors. They
explored more than a dozen rooms completely equipped with lighting, radiators, furniture, bathrooms, all the most modern appliances from the most modern construction of the time. It was equipped with communication equipment for millions and millions of dollars, and enough generator power to light up a city as big as Berlin. They had come to Friedrichsruhe. A huge health resort had been built here during the war and turned into a military facility, codenamed Wolfsturm. Codenames with Wolf was only designated headquarters for Hitler. However, they did not stop their advance until reaching Ohrdruf. Here they liberated the first concentration camp found by American soldiers, where the bodies of the prisoners who were too weak to be evacuated had been shot by the SS just hours before. From here, the 89th marched towards Armstadt. However, here begins the strange part. They sat in Ohrdruf for 6 days, with no apparent interest in Jonasthal or the S3. Then they bypassed it and went to Arnstadt, and still ignored it for several days. And we are to believe that intelligence reports have reported Hitler being there, and yet it was ignored by Patton's army. On April 14th, a detailed report on the atrocities were compiled at the 10th concentration camp Estenfeld. From where these recordings were made, however, there was no mention of the S3 construction project for those prisoners here or those in Ohrdruf have worked on. Also, doing inventory of the reconnaissance flights clearly show evidence that Jonasthal was photographed on January 9, 1945, but all these photographs have been removed from the archives. And if we then look to the diary of the 89th, between April 8th and 11th, the days where they would have arrived at Jonasthal in the S3, all these entries are missing, and there's no mention of an underground facility. The National Archives in Washington still have all documents pertaining to this location classified. Now, why would there be the need to cover up this if it was just what we were told it was, an unfinished headquarters for Hitler? That makes no sense now, does it?
So we'll make our way past. So this was one whole row of tunnels that was blown up 45, 46 after the Russians took over from the Third Army. Here you see the whole plateau. There's another section further down the road in a similar manner. And obviously people are trying to get in here. Some have succeeded. Yes, this has been cemented up. Oh, well. Like I said, some of them have been bricked up rather successfully. I would imagine I could probably... That's tight. Oh, that's very tight. Let's see if I can fit my ass in there. I might be able to get in there. I'm not entirely sure I can get myself out again. Now I know there's nothing in there. It's all empty. But I want it to go. I just can't get in there on my own. Jeez, like... It's that bar, the crossbar they put on to keep people like me out. That's the problem. And the great things about doing what I do, you should meet great people.
Wollen wir es riskieren?
Das gesagt. Aha,
Ja?
wie kann das probieren?
Nicht schlecht kann es sein.
Since I know some of the tunnels are accessible, while I was looking for an entrance, a very nice gentleman shows up who's on vacation with his wife and family, and under the best guise that stupid Sig's company, we decided that, what the hell, let's climb in the hole together. At least if we get stuck, we'll have company.
Ich wusste nicht, dass es so wichtig ist. All right, you guys, this is what the Jonastal tunnels look like. This is not what 26,000 people were working on. Seriously. Da war eine Zugschwelle. Was heißt Schwelle? Eigentlich von die beste Geburtstage, die ich hatte. Noch.
Now we know that somewhere between 18 and 30,000 prisoners worked here. And I've seen a lot of these underground tunnels. I've seen a lot of Kamla's construction at this time. Now, it's very hard to believe that even if there are 25 tunnels, and some of them are longer and more developed and elaborate than this one, it's very hard to believe that they could not have come up with more or built more in the time with the resources they had available. And indeed, none of us are actually believing this to be the case. They worked on something else nearby here. The communication center, 10, was done. The other communication bunkers around the area was also done. So they were working on something else, somewhere else, but nearby, given the number of prisoners located in this general area.
Drill holes, everything here. They were still working when the war ended, but they hadn't gotten far, and they had a year and 26,000 people to make this. Come on, you know there's more hiding in here.
And here's one of the pipes that was connected to the compressors across the street that would bring in the compressed air for the prisoners, jackhammers, and drills. You still see a little bit of this outside the tunnel, and here inside there's a full section of this pipe.
Wo ist die Steine? Da ist es.
Er hat gesagt, dass es möglich ist. Oh, das ist möglich. Ja. Ja, das ist. Ja, hier ist die nächste Stelle. Und es sieht aus Tageslicht. Ja. Just in case you had any idea what stupid shit I do on my birthday. This is it.
Warte mal, Verschluss.
Ja.
Ja. Hat sich an die ganze Wand gelöst.
So what did you do on your birthday? Was it this interesting? Did you crawl in an underground Nazi tunnel built by General Hans Kammler? I don't think you did, but I did.
1934 hat man schon beschlossen, dieses Nachrichtenamt 10, Deckname Olga, in Ortruf zu bauen.
Ja.
Das hat man dann von 36 bis 38 gebaut. Das ist erst ganz am Ende des Krieges aktiviert worden, aber es war fertig. Die Amerikaner haben es entdeckt, das war ja einer der Aufträge von General Patton, ja, dieses Nachrichtenamt einzunehmen. Und die Amerikaner müssen sehr beeindruckt gewesen sein. Sie sprechen darüber, dass es mindestens $5 Millionen wert ist. Und sie sind ja von allem beeindruckt, selbst von den sanitären Anlagen da drin, von den Schiffsdieseln. Dieses Nachrichtenamt war komplett autark. Ja. Man hatte einen eigenen Brunnen, fast 200 Meter tief gebohrt. Man hatte die neueste Technik verbaut, die es zu diesem Zeitpunkt gab. Und man hat Klimaanlagen drin gehabt. Also es war richtig modern. Ja? Und ja, aus taktischen Gründen auch sicherlich sinnvoll, Nachrichtenzentralen zu erobern, ist klar. Die Deutschen haben ganz viele Nachrichtenzentralen gebaut, weil das eine Erfahrung aus dem Ersten Weltkrieg war. Wenn ich meine Truppen an der Front nicht erreiche, kann ich auch keine Befehle erteilen.
Klar.
Ja? Aber bereits 1935 bis 1937 hat man ja schon in der Stadt unter einem Schloss, Witwensitz mitten in der Stadt, das Amt 8 gebaut. Auch dieses Nachrichtenamt war wirklich hochmodern ausgerüstet. Die konnten mit allen Kabeln kommunizieren, also das waren schon sehr moderne Nachrichtenämter. Und am sogenannten Eulenberg, am Stadtrand von Arnstadt, hat man dann nochmal angefangen, ein sogenanntes Amt 800 zu bauen. Dieses Amt hätte in etwa ausgesehen wie das in Zossen. Also das wäre nochmal ein riesengroßes Nachrichtenamt gewesen. Und man fragt sich, warum hat man hier diese Dichte von Nachrichtenämtern? Ja? Und man kann es eventuell nur damit begründen, dass halt hier das Oberkommando der Wehrmacht herkommen sollte, dass ein Führerhauptquartier herkommen sollte und dass von hier aus eine Art Restreich, ja, das war ja ziemlich das Zentrum Deutschlands, was noch übrig geblieben ist, dann die entsprechenden Aktionen führt. Ja. Dieses Nachrichtenamt 800 ist ja dann auch nicht fertig geworden, da ist den Wasser in die Baugrube gelaufen. Dieses Nachrichtenamt 800 ist in einem Gebiet gebaut worden, da ist direkt gegenüber der Straße das Mitteldeutsche Werk gewesen, also Flugzeugindustrie. Es gab einen Verbindungstunnel unter der Straße. Und es gibt eine Zeugenaussage, dass das Dreieck eine sogenannte Heckmann-Anlage, also ein Rüstungsbetrieb, direkt neben dem Amt 800, auch unter der Erde, dazugehört hat. Heute sind diese Anlagen alle mit Gartenanlagen bepflanzt und es wird schwierig, ne? Selbst für einfachste Messungen. Was wir allerdings wissen, wir haben Luftbilder davon. Wir sehen also, dass auch von diesem Amt 800 Tunnel abgehen, zum Teil auch sehr große. Und es gibt ein Gutachten über die Mülldeponie Eulenberg. Das ist das Gebiet, das ist nämlich früher mit Müll verfüllt worden, bevor die Gartenanlage drauf kam. Und dort wird auch ganz klar eingemessen, dass also nach verschiedenen Richtungen, insbesondere nach Süden und nach Westen, Wege abgehen unter der Erde, Tunnel. Ja. Wo die hinführen, wissen wir natürlich nicht. Und es wird niemand in die Gartenanlage gehen und sich 20 Meter tief reingraben, um die Tunnel zu finden. Ja. Zumal diese Mülldeponien, das sind keine normalen Mülldeponien. Also da ist alles drin, was man nicht sehen will. Ja. Es gibt kein Gerücht, was es in Jonastal nicht gibt. Also hier ist schon das Bernsteinzimmer gesucht worden. Ja. Auch das damals nur ein Vorwand, um Stollen nachzusprengen, denn es gibt Bereiche, die sind seit 1945 niemals aufgewiesen, die werden immer schön zugehalten. Vermutlich, das sind zumindest die Vermutungen der Leute, die sich damit beschäftigen, weil es eben von diesen Anlagen aus weitergehende Tunnelwege gibt, die vielleicht in Anlagen führen, die wir gar nicht kennen. Ja. Es würde auch Sinn machen, weil es nämlich der Bereich ist, der am weitesten fortgeschritten ist. Und wenn uns Grothmann sagt, es wären Zugangs- und Versorgungsbauwerke für Anlagen, die schon da sind, dann baue ich nicht erst die ganze Anlage fertig und fange dann an, nach hinten durchzugraben, sondern dann beginne ich sofort, wie eine Anlage halbwegs statisch stabil ist, also betoniert ist zum Beispiel, und fange von dort an auch weiter nach hinten irgendwelche notwendigen Wege durchzutreiben. Ja. Vielleicht sind das die Gründe. Wir wissen es aber nicht. Also es wird immer schön zugehalten. Ja.
So the other row of tunnels are on the mountainside down there, because this looks more and more like a version of Project Riese, just further away from everybody's advance, literally in the center of Germany. Now that one I'm definitely not going to get through. I don't think I have to worry about trying that. Of course, they bricked all these up. Let's turn on the Geiger counter just for the heck of it. See if there's any air coming from in here. There's not. This is background radiation. This is the same thing as with Project Riese. You have 20, 30 unfinished tunnels, tunnel entrances. Some of them sealed up, blown up after the war. This is what we can see, which is not a lot. And then we have the number of 26,000 slave laborers, forced laborers that worked here. And why can't I see a lot? Then you have Diebner and Schumann testing weaponry adjacent. in the middle of it all. Please don't try to sell me on the last redoubt for Hitler and the party, because that song has long since departed my mind and train of thought, both here and in Riese. And the funny thing is, remember how I said, every time there's a place we really need to excavate and we find things that are questionable to the public narrative, it turns into a natural area, preserve, habitat. So you can't dig, you can't do anything because they have decided so. In Poland, France, Germany, Austria, everywhere there's something we want to question underground, it becomes a natural preserve. So we are now prohibited from digging and looking. If we look at some of the statements made post-war of what they have seen and observed here, both American soldiers and German locals, that is where things start unraveling of the story. I don't think we can call it a story. Literally the whole mountainside was just full of tunnels. 26 tunnels drilled into the mountain. And that's all she wrote. Except for the whole, what happened to the underground city that was mentioned in the American colonel's diary. Here you see the different levels the trains would work on. Here. And all along you have cement foundations with rebar for equipment, transformers, cement mixers, standing along the side of this construction project that now runs next to the road. That is borderline military training and proving area, just like it was back then.
Und das Gerücht, dass hier die Atombombe gebaut wurde, das ist auch nicht ganz von der Hand zu weisen. Natürlich wissen wir darüber nichts, Sie haben da keine Unterlagen. Ja? Aber wir wissen zum Beispiel, dass Dr. Diebner in Stadt-Illen saß. Dr. Diebner war der Atomphysiker, es gab ja verschiedene Gruppen, Heisenberg, Diebner und so weiter, war der Mann, der vom Heereswaffenamt gefördert wurde. Also das war, ich sage jetzt mal, der Nazi. Ne? Und Dr. Diebner, das wissen wir auch, war ein Spezialist für Hohlladungsbomben. Er hat also diese kugelförmigen Bomben gebaut, wo der Laie jetzt sagen würde, chemische Ladungen knallen nach innen auf den Kern, unter Umständen eben auch auf Uran 235 oder so und verdichten den entsprechend, ja, und führen da zu einer, heute würde man sagen, Atomexplosion. Ja. Das war damals in den Kinderschuhen, muss man natürlich sagen. Ja. Aber Dr. Diebner hat sein Labor in Stadt-Illen, mitten in der Stadt, im Keller einer Mittelschule gehabt. Dort hätte er mit Sicherheit keine größeren Experimente machen können. Ja. Ja. Mit anderen Worten, warum sollte er nicht den Truppenübungsplatz für Versuche, für Feldversuche genutzt haben? Idiots, ne? Ja. Diese taktischen Atomwaffen, die eine große Sprengwirkung haben, die aber das Gefechtsfeld, was ich vielleicht selber später überschreiten will, nicht verseuchen. Ja? Und man sagt also, er hätte so eine unterkritische Ladung, ja, gebaut und man hätte die Versuche auf dem Truppenübungsplatz gemacht. Und das ist ja beobachtet worden. Ja? Zum einen Claire Werner, das Burgfräulein von der Wachsenburg, die hat also mit ihrer Familie auf dieser Burg gelebt und hat dort die Gastronomie geführt. Die hat einen Hinweis bekommen, geh doch mal auf den Turm heute Abend und sieh mal rüber zum Truppenübungsplatz, wir machen da was. Wenn das gelingt, gewinnen wir vielleicht den Krieg noch. Auch so ein Satz deutet eigentlich darauf hin, dass es nicht um herkömmliche Waffen gegangen sein kann. Ja. Denn die deutsche Generalität hat ja die Entwicklung von Atombomben als Atomkackerei vertan, weil man in der Anfangszeit Polen und Russland überrannt hat und auch so schnell vorwärts kam. Erst 1943 nach Stalingrad, als man auf dem Rückzug war, da hat man permanent nach sogenannten Wunderwaffen gesucht. Ja. Ja? Da wurde es dann wieder wichtig, also hat man auch Zeit verloren. Und die Claire Werner hat von der Wachsenburg eine Explosion gesehen, die sie beschrieben hat, in Rot, außen Gelb, und es wäre ein großer Sturm auf die Burg gekommen, eine Druckwelle sicherlich. Ja. Ja? Fatalerweise hat sie auch gesagt, in den umliegenden Orten hätten am nächsten Tag SS-Ärzte sehr viel zu tun gehabt, weil Leute Nasenbluten hatten und ähnliches. Und daraus ist dann sehr schnell eine atomare Explosion gemacht worden, auch von Schriftstellern halt, die auch Bücher schreiben und so weiter, ohne dass das irgendjemand beweisen konnte. Ne? Und Claire Werner kannte das Wort Atombombe ja sowieso noch nicht. Ne? Das ist zu einer Zeit, wo das völlig neu war. Und eine zweite Aussage, Heinz Wachsmuth, der hier dienstverpflichtet war, der hat behauptet, er hätte am nächsten Tag oder sogar 2 Tage lang unter Vollschutz dort auf dem Truppenübungsplatz viele Leichen einsammeln müssen und auf Scheiterhaufen schmeißen müssen, was nahelegt, dass man dort Häftlinge in Gewinn zu sehen. Also wenn das gemacht worden ist, ist es natürlich eine große Schweinerei. Ja? Und es müssen Leute überlebt haben. Also es gab Leute, die noch aus den Gebüschen gekrochen kamen, wo so sagt, das ist ja in der Aussage zu sehen, und die SS dann sofort erschossen hat. Ja. Und die wurden alle verbrannt. Und wenn ich jetzt nochmal an die Befreiung des Nordlagers denke, General Patton und der Besuch von Eisenhower, die diesen Verbrennungsplatz dort oben sehen, ja, dann fragt man sich doch, warum wurden Leichen, die eigentlich begraben sind, nochmal verbrannt? Krematorien gab es ja nicht in Otto. Was sollte da vertuscht werden, ist die eigentliche Frage. Waren das auch noch Opfer dieser Explosion? Wollte man vielleicht zahlenmäßig was vertuschen? Das sind alles solche Fragen. Ja? Und die Frage, ob Deutschland an der Atombombe gearbeitet hat, die steht eigentlich nicht. Natürlich haben die daran gearbeitet. Ja? Ja. Da bin ich felsenfest von überzeugt. Wie weit man gekommen ist, ist die Frage. Den Geheimdienstbericht von Flerov muss ein Mann mit gutem technischen Verständnis gewesen sein, der über diese Explosion berichtet. Und er berichtet an Kurtschatow. Kurtschatow war ja der Chef vom Atombombenprogramm der Russen, der Sowjets. Und er berichtet also ganz genau, als ob er dabei gewesen wäre, wie die Bombe aufgebaut worden ist, dass die unter großer SS-Bewachung an die Stelle der Explosion geführt worden ist, dass die an einem Gestell aufgehangen worden ist. Also er muss, man sagt, fast dabei gewesen sein, oder er muss einen Zugang gehabt haben über einen Verbindungsmann, der genau wusste, was passiert. Und er berichtet das an Kurtschatow, und Kurtschatow prüft sicherlich auch Plausibilität und berichtet an den Geheimdienstchef und so weiter und an Stalin. Und er berichtet 1:1. Das, was Flerov gesagt hat. Und an Stalin berichtet man, glaube ich, keinen Unsinn. Der bläst einen aus wie eine Kerze. Ja? Das hätte sich keiner gewagt. Also mit anderen Worten, man hat hier irgendeinen Test gemacht. Vielleicht so eine Hochladungsbombe, wie Dietmar die gebaut hat, wie er sie entwickelt hat. Ob in dem Kern jetzt gleich Uran 235 war, das kann ich nicht sagen. Eigentlich ging es ja nur um den Grad der Verdichtung bei so einem Test. Aber es kann natürlich auch ein minimales Material drin gewesen sein. Das können wir nicht sagen. Ja? Aber den Test muss es gegeben haben. Und wenn es den Test gegeben hat, dann heißt das auch, es muss einen Ort geben, wo das Ding gebaut worden ist. Und das ist nicht im Keller in Stadt Ilm gebaut worden.
Nee.
Mit Sicherheit nicht. Ja. Und das legt eben wieder nahe, dass es hier Anlagen gibt, die von den vielen, vielen Leuten, die da waren, gebaut worden sind, die vielleicht zum Teil sogar schon früher da waren. Ja? Rothmann hat in dem Interview gesagt, wir haben ja nicht alles neu gebaut, wir haben vieles nur verbunden. Und der Robert Allen in seiner Aussage hat ja unter anderem gesagt, er wundert sich, wo der ganze Aushub hin ist. Und Rothmann sagt, wir mussten manchmal gar nicht ausheben. Das ist ein Karstgebiet, hier gibt es riesen Hohlräume. Die haben wir nur ausgebaut. Ja? Also mit anderen Worten, man ist wahrscheinlich in dieser ganzen Bautätigkeit, auch mit dieser Manpower, mit diesen vielen Leuten, sehr schnell vorangekommen und hat Dinge geschaffen, die bis heute unbekannt sind. Und da sind bestimmt auch Räume dabei gewesen, in denen Dr. Dietmar gearbeitet hat. Es gibt da sehr viele Berichte, also über Verstrahlung auch von Wissenschaftlern bei diesem Test, ja, die dann angeblich in der Nähe in einem Lazarett in extra Räumen betreut wurden, die nicht überlebt haben, aber wo man sicherlich beobachtet hat, wie entwickelt sich das. Das war ja alles neu. Ja. Mit Strahlung umzugehen, heute wissen wir sehr viel darüber, aber zu dem Zeitpunkt war das alles in den Kinderschuhen. Ja. Und also es gibt viele, viele Hinweise, Indizien, die auf Dinge deuten, die nichts mit dem Jonas-Teil zu tun haben. Robert Allen, hatte ich heute schon, glaube ich, gesagt, Robert Allen, der dieses Buch Lucky Forward geschrieben hat, 1947. Da schreibt er, dass die unterirdischen Anlagen erstaunlich waren. Und er sagt, es hätte einen zentralen Raum gegeben, von dem viele Wege abgegangen sind. Er hat das bezeichnet wie die Speichen eines Rades. Und er hat gesagt, nichts wäre in natürlichen Höhlen gemacht worden, sondern alles wäre mit Stahlbeton gebaut. Es hätte Klimaanlagen gegeben, riesige Küchen. Ja. Er bezeichnet ja am Ende dieser Wege wären richtige kleine Städtchen gewesen. Ja. Also ausgerüstet mit Schlafräumen, mit Ruheräumen, mit Arbeitsräumen, sogar Bars getrennt für Mannschaften und Offiziere und viele andere Dinge beschreibt er da. Dann frage ich mich, was hat er gesehen? Das klingt ja auch sehr nach Führerhauptquartier. Ja. Vielleicht war an einem Ende dieser Wege auch das Führerhauptquartier. Ja? Und alles über einen zentralen Punkt verbunden. Spekulation, freilich. Aber was hat er da gesehen? Ja.
Und wo?
Und wo, ganz genau. James Holland hat mich in dem Interview gefragt, ob die Bombe, die da explodiert ist, so eine war wie in Hiroshima. Konnte er sich vielleicht nicht verkneifen. Ich habe ihm dann gesagt, da gäbe es die Burg auch nicht und auch nicht die Aussage von Claire Renner. Aber ja, also wie gesagt, sowas kann es nicht gewesen sein. Es kann nur so eine Testanordnung gewesen sein, minimal. Ja. Ja. Aber in dem Bericht von dem Flairbock und so wird ja gesagt, Bäume im Umkreis von 500-600 Metern werden eben auch in Mitleidenschaft gezogen worden. Und eben, wie gesagt, die Häftlinge da. Wenn das so war, dann war das schon ein starkes Stück. Ja. Ja. Und dann ist klar, dass man da versucht hat, die Beweise zu vernichten und die Leute eben auf Scheiterhaufen zu verbrennen.
Sometimes I get information that I have to follow up on. This is one of those times.
This is where it is suspected, and I'm using the term suspected because it has not been verified. I have received information that the Americans found a functioning nuclear reactor. Here, I'm about 300-400 meters from the tunnels, where they dug the tunnels. They couldn't recover it in time for handing over the area for the Russians, so they gutted it and covered it up, possibly by a road. And not far from here, some 10-12 kilometers, there's a castle. Within some kilometers of that were supposed to have been another speculation or story about another nuclear facility. And of course you had Dibna and the several nuclear tests that took place down here in the proving grounds. And what is interesting, I'm standing practically on top of this area where it was in this rough area, this general area, there was supposed to have been a nuclear facility. And of course I brought my Geiger counter and there's absolutely no readings. Everything is straight zero around here. But that doesn't really mean anything, unfortunately, because as I saw yesterday when I was standing in the very center of Kurt Dibna's reactor, a verified reactor, with uranium and all, standing inside where the actual core was, and there was no radiation. So if here was a gutted nuclear reactor underground, and I don't get any readings, it doesn't tell me anything. As I saw yesterday, I'm standing inside a nuclear reactor and I get zero readings inside the damn thing. So that I'm getting no readings here, if there's a reactor 10-20 meters underground, I wouldn't get any readings either. Complicating things somewhat, which means, well, my contact that wrote me said, well, I'm probably not going to find anything. It's covered up, it's underground. What do I expect to see? I don't know. I expect to see something, I guess. Hope springs eternal. But if I'm looking for something different than what other people have been looking for in the same area, well, that's kind of how you find things. And like I said, this is all military territory. A little unnerving. My Geiger counter just went off. Holy shit. Holy shit. I mean, it's still within safe limits, but holy shit. Look at this. Fuck. I'm just walking here. 73. Holy. Jesus, 105. I'm starting to the point, well, should I be here? Where the hell? I'm just walking here 400 meters from the tunnels. This is where they said there was supposed to be a hidden nuclear reactor. Look at this thing going. You guys wanted readings? Well, this is a little troubling. And it's still going. Jesus, where's my nuclear physicist when I need one? Damn. I need to send him a photo of this because I don't know if this is... What the hell is this? Jesus. This thing's going crazy. It was said that this thing was buried under a road. 514. Well, here's the road, 633. Well, here's a road leading down to the tunnels in the general area. Shit. Now this sign makes so much more sense now, doesn't it? There was a German physicist. Turn this off for a minute and turn it back on again. There was a German physicist down here with a ground penetrating radar walking a road like this where he said there was 2 nuclear bombs he found with the ground penetrating radar that he thought was leaking and needed to be dug up. And he was walking a road that looked exactly like this. I'm gonna have to check the footage because, well, I'm sorry, there's radiation here. And here's a road that looks like it. I'm just turning this thing back on again. Jesus. $642. All right, you get the point. I'm just going to turn this off for 517, 616. Now, I know I'm still within reasonable safe limits, but having gone from 100 meters down the road to my Geiger counter going completely apeshit in the middle of where I was told the Allies found and covered up a functioning nuclear reactor on a road very similar to where a German physicist with a ground penetrating radar has found signs that he claims were 2 nuclear bombs that were leaking. And I am on a military grounds that says danger.
Several years ago, military historian Christoph Focken and retired engineer Peter Lohr discovered what appears to be an unknown tunnel system, and it was not empty. Using GPR, they identified and mapped out what appeared to be the outline of several large bombs, matching in dimension with the nuclear bombs used by the Americans in Japan. Now, when we look at this in the light of what we now know, that a lot of nuclear material and technology was delivered to the US by the U-234 in 1945, And we have a clear indication that General Kamla made a deal with the US and subsequently handed over all the technology and scientists of the rocket program. It seems very likely he would do the same for the nuclear program. And given that all files of what the Americans found here are still classified or outright missing, strengthens this case. There are two very distinct possibilities. Either the Germans hid these bombs themselves, as they could not take them with them, or the Americans buried them themselves in anticipation of handing over the area to the Russian army. The same thing is seen in other areas where the American army arrived before the Russians, so this is not unthinkable. However, after breaking the story with the warning that the 70-year-old bombs containing radioactive material was a clear and present danger to the drinking water, any public investigation were quickly shut down. Yet what then happened makes this even stranger. When they later returned to investigate the tunnels, they found them empty, and the ground above slightly disturbed. His GPR images are compelling, and it would indeed seem that somebody, in the dead of night, literally, dug up and removed what they had found. So somebody must have known exactly what they were doing and what they were dealing with in order to do this. Bear in mind the French intelligence reports from the time of the war, which stated that Germany was only 6 months away from actively mass-producing nuclear weapons. Historian Christel Focken, she wrote a book about the findings, tells all exactly what they found and what it all means in the bigger picture.
Mit einem wirklich hochleistungsfähigen Bodenradargerät und hat behauptet, er hat 5 Stollen gefunden und in diesen Stollen lägen auch noch große Bomben. Und er hat ja dann die Bilder in 3D auch entsprechend dargestellt, es gibt auch ein Buch darüber. Und er hat festgestellt, viereckige Leitwerke, typisch deutsch. Ja? Und diese Bomben, ja, es wurde vermutet, dass das Atombomben sind. Und wenn man überlegt, dass GIs heute noch sagen, sie haben aus diesem Gebiet Teile für Atombomben mitgenommen, naja, da wird so eine Aussage schon brisant. Und alle Medien, Bildzeitungen, wer auch immer, alle waren hier und haben sich mit den Leuten beschäftigt und wollten die Bilder sehen und so weiter. Ne? Und die Bilder sind auch, wenn man sie so sieht, ja, schon sehr klar. Ich bin zwar kein Techniker, ich kenne mich mit Bodenradargeräten nicht aus.
Ja, ich habe die Bilder gesehen.
Ich weiß nicht, ob man das manipulieren kann oder so, aber wenn das so ist, wie man es auf diesen Bildern sieht, ja, dann hätte es sich eigentlich angeboten, da auch mal reinzubohren. Ja. Mal zu gucken, ob da wirklich was ist. Denn es gibt hier immer Hohlräume, das ist Karstgebiet. Die können auch natürlichen Ursprungs sein. Aber wenn ich oben eine Bohrung reinsetze und vielleicht mal mit einer Kamera reingucke, dann werde ich sehr schnell feststellen, ob das natürlich ist oder ob das von Menschenhand gebaut ist oder ob vielleicht gar Maschinen oder andere Dinge drin liegen. Aber aus ganz natürlichem Instinkt sind Kommunen da nicht interessiert dran. Ja? Und für eine Kommune ist das eigentlich auch nicht die richtige Aufgabe. Ja? Was soll denn ein Bürgermeister machen, wenn er jetzt da so ernsthaft annimmt, da liegen Atombomben drin? Er bohrt da ein Loch ein und was macht er, wenn da gleich eine Kontamination hat? Das ist keine Badewanne, da kann man den Stöpsel nicht wieder draufdrücken. Aber sag mal, selbst wenn er Glück hat und er sieht tatsächlich, da liegt sowas drin, da weiß er noch lange nicht, wie er da reinkommt. Es muss ja irgendwo einen Zugang geben. Ja. Die kann man ja nicht durch Schlüsselloch holen. Nehmen wir doch mal an, er hat den Zugang gefunden. Dann kann er auch nicht einfach die Klinke runterdrücken. Das ist keine Gartentür. Ja. Wir wissen doch nicht, ob das nicht gesichert ist. Sprengfallen, Gasfallen und viele andere Dinge, das gab es ja. Die Sowjets haben das bei ihren Untersuchungen auf dem Platz das eine oder andere Mal auch berichtet, ne? Dass es solche Fallen gab. Die haben sich manchmal nicht weitergetragen. Ja, jetzt, selbst wenn da nichts passiert, dann stehe ich da und dann liegt eine Riesenbombe mit 2 Tonnen Gewicht da, auch noch vielleicht mit radioaktivem Material drin. Da kann ich nicht meine Handwagen nehmen und kann das durch Jonas-Teil zum Schrott bringen. Also das muss fachmännisch entsorgt werden. Vielleicht braucht man spezielle Hebelmittel, Hebelzeuge oder vielleicht muss man sogar Schienen legen, damit man so überhaupt erst mal rauskriegt und so. Also ich will eigentlich sagen, das ist keine Aufgabe für einen Bürgermeister, das ist eine Aufgabe für die Bundeswehr, für die NATO, für Spezialisten, die sowas schon mal gesehen haben, die vorher mal wissen, wo kann ich in der Tür vielleicht ein Loch bohren, damit ich sehe, gibt es noch Sicherungen da drin oder
Ja.
Das ist nichts, was so eine Kommune regelt. Und deswegen sagen die Kommunen, und auch natürlich aus finanziellen Gründen, das stimmt alles nicht. Ja? So, erstaunlicherweise ist bei dieser Geschichte am Ende aufgetaucht oder behauptet worden, die Behörden hätten die Bomben rausgeholt. Die Aufnahmen mit dem roten Radargerät wurden wiederholt und plötzlich waren die Stollen leer und die Symmetrie der Stollen war weg. Also die waren nicht mehr so gleichmäßig geformt wie vorher, sondern wie nach oben aufgebröselt, das sieht man auf den Aufnahmen ganz gut. Und es wurde halt behauptet, die Bomben wurden rausgeholt und die Stollen von innen gesprengt.
So, mitten in die Nacht hast du alle verschwunden.
Ja, das liegt ja nahe, die Behörden wussten dass sie da drin liegen. Die wussten auch, wie sie reinkommen. Oder vielleicht die Bundeswehr, ich weiß es nicht. Vielleicht hat man auch mal über das rote Telefon in Washington angerufen und hat gesagt, ihr wisst doch was, sagt mir, was ist. Es gibt hier Ärger. Keine Ahnung. Ne? Das ist die Geschichte, die damals 2016 gelaufen ist und die viel Staub aufgewirbelt hat. Ja? Aber die eben diese Vermutung, dass man hier an atomaren Geschichten gearbeitet hat, vielleicht an der Bombe und so weiter, das zu befördern, ne? und immer wieder zu sagen, ja, wir müssen da rein, wir müssen gucken, hier ist noch viel mehr. Ne? Das ist dieses Mysterium Jonastal. Das ist alles nicht zu beweisen. Natürlich ist das Spekulation, solange wie ich nicht drinstehe.
Ja. Und Grothmann hat viel davon gesprochen.
Grothmann hat ja von den Atombomben im Jonastal gesprochen, wie von Äpfeln auf dem Markt. Also für ihn war klar, es gab mehrere Bomben, die waren auch schon wohl 41 oder 42 fertig. Aber es waren alles Prototypen, von denen man nicht genau wusste, ob sie funktionieren. Und man hatte zwei Probleme. Zum einen, was passiert, wenn ich die irgendwo runterschmeiße und sie gehen nicht kaputt? Dann hat der Feind natürlich eine technische Entwicklung, wo er weiterarbeiten kann. Will man vielleicht nicht. Mindestens zweitens, man erhöht die Wut in dem Gebiet, in dem man die abschmeißt, selbst wenn die funktioniert. Da hatte man ja Angst, London hätte man ja erreichen können mit Flugzeugen und so weiter. Aber wenn die da runtergegangen wären, London war an Leid gewöhnt, an Bombenangriffe und Raketenangriffe. Ja. Die hätten schon gemerkt, das ist eine größere Explosion, das ist eine andere Nummer. Aber deswegen wäre London und die Alliierten, die wären nicht gefallen. Ne? Das hätte den Krieg nicht beendet. Und deswegen war die große Idee, wir schicken das entweder in den Osten oder in den Westen. Also ich sage jetzt mal Moskau oder New York. Und da gab es ja wohl Angriffspläne. Bloß dafür waren keine Trägermittel da. Ja? Und deswegen, das ist die Behauptung von Grothmann, deswegen haben die Wissenschaftler selber gesagt, das können wir nicht machen. Ja?
Was this what this was all about? Jesus. No power lines, no nothing here to mess with the signal. There's nothing in the trees. Really don't know what to think about this, except the fact that I have to come back here. Just gonna turn it on one more time. Yeah. It's right here. It's starting to climb right here again. The closer I get to this area here, Jesus, this thing is just shooting. Wow. All right, I'm going to turn this off again because so something is here. Again, it is probably within safe limits. Haven't heard back from my physicist yet. I'm safe. I'm sure it's fine. However, in this little lump of woods here, there's a lot more than just background radiation, which is what a couple of microsieverts. This is more. This is something else. What about the hole in the ground here? There's a hole in the ground, I don't know. Well, as you can tell, oh, here's a piece of this metal. Metal retains. It's not as high as on the other side, but it's still way higher than background radiation. But the highest point is right on the other side of that road. I have to go check that video. What is this? Piece of a toilet bowl. That's climbing. But still, it's not up to the 600s on the other side. But well, okay, I really... don't know exactly what I thought I would find, but this is probably not it. Okay. I don't know what to say. I did not expect to find this. I was so satisfied a minute ago that, yeah, there's nothing here, they cleaned it up, I get it. Then my Geiger counter blows up. Hairs on the back of my neck is standing up. I'm a little... I mean, it is my birthday. I guess this is the most radioactive birthday I've ever had. There's a million different scenarios that could cause a heightened radiation level. Obviously, it's not because of background radiation, because there's not much anywhere else. And I'm not a nuclear scientist. There's a lot of this that is technology way beyond my scope of understanding, granted. However, when I go off-hinged off a lead that there is something on the ground here has to do with nuclear, and at that very spot my Geiger counter goes nuts, what can I think? What do you think?
Nee. Das erscheint doch unwahrscheinlich.
Ja.
Und insofern muss man eben annehmen, dass es mehr gibt als das, was man sehen kann. Ja? Und dass es auch ganz bewusst geheim gehalten wird, na, auch nach 76 Jahren, ja, wo die Stollen vielleicht anfangen zusammenzubrechen. Man will Gras über die Geschichte wachsen lassen, beziehungsweise man mäht das auch nicht. Ne? Also das soll unter dem Teppich bleiben, und dafür muss es ernsthafte Gründe geben. Wir haben zum Beispiel einen Bericht der Russen, dass die in Krawinkel, in der Nähe der Luftmunitionsanstalt, eine unterirdische Produktionsanlage gefunden haben. Sie reden von 200.000 Quadratmetern in 6 Stollen, und sie hätten dort 127 Werkzeugmaschinen abgebaut. Die haben die natürlich mitgenommen dann. Ne? Also wo war denn diese Anlage? Das würde ja auch das Lager Krawinkel erklären, ja? Weil die meisten, üblich war, dass Häftlinge in der Nähe der Lager arbeiten. Ja? Und dann hätten die eben wirklich da auch in der Nähe gearbeitet. Ja? Und die vom Nordlager haben vielleicht oben an den Anlagen mitgearbeitet, die in der Nähe von diesem Amt 10 sind oder die Robert Ellen da beschreibt. Ja? Und die Leute vom Zeltlager, die haben vielleicht sogar auf dem, natürlich, die haben auch zum Teil im Jonas-Trail gearbeitet, denn das haben ja die Espenfelder Bürger gesehen, dass die durchs Dorf laufen, aber die haben vielleicht, da waren ja auch 3000 Leute, vielleicht auch an anderen Stellen weitergearbeitet, dort oben im Bereich zwischen Gossel und Espenfeld. Denn da wird auch vermutet, dass unterirdische Anlagen sind. Rothmann sagt ja, Zugangs- und Versorgungsbauwerk im Jonas-Tal für die Anlagen auf beiden Seiten des Tals. Ja? Also dann würde das Zeltlager auch Sinn machen. Sind viele Dinge einfach nicht geklärt. Und vielleicht werden die das auch nie. Ja? Außer es entdeckt sich mal so eine Anlage selber.
Okay.
In Archiven schlummert bestimmt noch viel Material. Hat mir jemand erzählt, er war im Archiv in London, und als er dort nicht mehr weiterkam, hat er zu dem Archivar gesagt, sag mal, hast du nicht noch was dazu? Und der Archivar hat gesagt, nee, das ist alles, was ich habe. In der Findkartei ist nichts mehr. Aber komm mal mit. Dann hat er ihn in einen riesengroßen Raum geführt. Der war bis unter die Decke mit deutschen Beuteakten vollgestopft. Nur diese Akten hat noch niemand gelesen. Oh. Und es ist ja nicht ausgeschlossen, dass da wichtige Dinge dabei sind. Die lateinische Frage, ja. Qui bono, wem nützt das? Ja. Na? Und wer hat verdient an diesen Konzentrationslagern, an Häftlingen, die gearbeitet haben? Das war die große Industrie. Ja. Ja, die Krupps, ja. die IG Farben und so weiter. Und Adolf Hitler wäre doch niemals so groß geworden, wenn er nicht von solchen Leuten gefördert worden wäre.
Nee, er war finanziert bei denen.
Auch von Amerika. Ja? Ja, ja. Und das sind die Kriegsgewinner, das sind die verdient haben an der Geschichte. Und ich sage mal, genau da muss man auch wieder aufpassen heute. Ja, es gibt Leute, die ganz gerne mal wieder irgendwo Krieg führen.
I had absolutely no idea that he actually put a reactor here.
Do you have your Geiger counter with you? Is it on? I hope you enjoy history and military history as much as I love bringing it to you. And if you want to see more of the photos and documents I've used for these episodes, documentation, so on, you can go to lostbattlefields.com. And if you feel like helping me out traveling around the world to some of these far-flung locations like Venno and Brown's first test stand behind me, or Deepna's nuclear reactor down there, or the Matsuda line over there, you can donate on PayPal, protection@serviceint.com. It'll be right here, and it is also on lostbattlefields.com. You absolutely don't have to, but I appreciate any help, and I love all you guys for all the support you've shown me, because history is important. We all know that, and I'm going to bring it to you.
Alright, for the next video is Uncanny Expeditions, a brand new look inside Area 51 and Papoose Lake. Here we go.
Today's journey begins, as many do, on an unnamed dirt road stretching off into a desert mountain range. Every so often, the subject of Area 51 bubbles up from the niche space it occupies on the internet to permeate the mainstream news cycle, and these first couple of months of 2026 have been no exception.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility.
Between this and director Luigi Venditelli's Bob Lazar film that's getting quite a bit of hype from the UFO world, many have been asking for a new base viewing episode, and you'd be in luck because that's exactly what I'll be doing today. I'll be making another ascent of the mountain that's come to be called No Name Peak, more on that later. But first up, I'll be tackling another viewpoint to look at a certain other dry lake bed. That's right, Papoose. I've articulated my position on S4 before, and to summarize, I'm in the camp of being skeptical of the facility's existence for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that there's already an acknowledged facility with the name Site 4 that's adjacent to the nearby Tonopah test range. But that's not to say my goal for doing these hikes is to debunk it. Quite the contrary, in fact. I would love for a story about an underground base built into the hillside containing 9 flying discs to be true. I mean, really, who wouldn't? Regardless, my interest when it comes to UFOs, or really anything for that matter, lies in what can be documented. Stories are exciting, but they really do little to move the needle of belief for me. Papoose Lake is a real, tangible place, and enough day and night observations over a long enough span of time should eventually lead to seeing something if those claims are true. This also happens to be one of my favorite areas to hike, so I genuinely don't mind getting out of the heat for a little bit just to stare at a dry lake bed from a mountaintop. I'm taking you up this dirt road that leads to a not so frequently traveled section of the Spring Mountains. We're near the southern boundary of the Nevada Test and Training Range, past Creech Air Force Base, but not quite all the way to the Department of Energy town of Mercury. There's frequent military activity passing through this corridor. We can see Reaper drones circling around close to Mercury as they line up with the runway at Creech to make their approach. This part of the Spring Mountains sees little traffic, and once we leave the highway in the distance, the odds of running into another person gets smaller and smaller. I'll be climbing Mount Sterling, which provides a view of Papoose Lake at a distance of 46 miles away. There was some confusion last time as to exactly which direction I was viewing the lake from, so let me clarify that I'll basically be directly south of it. I was a little bit iffy about the road conditions last time, but this trip I'll be driving up a little bit further to shave some time off the hike, since I'm confident my RAV4 can make it. It gets pretty rocky, but I have yet to find a desert trail that this little thing can't handle with the 2-inch lift and Falcon Wild Peak tires. Hell, I even went through the big washout going up to Kickapoo Peak a few days ago. I remember there being a small clearing in the trees further up the road with what looked like the remnants of an old campsite. There was a picnic table, a fire pit, and a really old rusted barbecue. That's my destination for now. It should provide a pretty good staging area for the ascent. All right, so before we continue onward, I do have something pretty cool packed in the back of my RAV that I got to show you guys real quick. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor of today's video, Electric E-Bikes. I'm kind of shocked that I was able to get an entire bike in the back of my tiny SUV camper like this. Check it out. This is the Electric XP4 folding e-bike, and it's perfect for the kind of outdoor adventures that I do, where I like to keep my setup small and minimalist. All I need to do is pull it down off my bed platform and it's ready to deploy, and now I have an expedition ready bike, just like that. The exterior of the bike is very robust, and we have some great features here, like a rear rack with a 150-pound capacity, and even puncture-proof tires that come pre-filled with slime from the factory. Let's go ahead and hit the trail now and see if this thing can handle it. As you can probably tell, this road is pretty rocky, but the suspension seat post really helps smooth things out. This particular model has a 750-watt motor to give me plenty of power, and I can choose between 5 selectable power modes depending on how I want to ride. And it does have a range of up to 85 miles and a top speed of 28 miles per hour. Lectric has implemented a proprietary in-house designed torque sensor to give me a great riding experience here. If I want to check road conditions before driving, I can just pull out the XP4. The fact that this thing can be packed away in small vehicles and deployed so quickly is honestly a game changer for exploring back roads and trails. So if you're looking for an absolutely fantastic foldable e-bike, go ahead and grab yourself a Lectric today. Hit up the link down below to learn more and to get one for yourself. All right, so I'll be continuing on past the Burro Poop up this little trail here behind me, stashing the bike here for now, and I'm going to basically wrap my way around that ridge till I get to the summit of Mount Sterling, or at least the highest point where I can get a good view of Papoose Lake. So let's head on up. It's definitely an early spring here in the Spring Mountains. Super warm weather, though it's cooling off a bit as I climb up in elevation. Tons of greenery with everything blooming. Back when I made my first video out here, there wasn't a trail marked on this app or anything, but it looks like somebody's added it. Although I'm not quite sure I fully agree with the line placement, but it's close enough, I suppose. Hey, look at that, we have a couple of wild horses. I've seen tons of burros around up here, but I think these are the first horses I've ever seen up here. So that's pretty cool. There is a spring nearby, so I would guess they probably came up here to get water. Doesn't look like they like me too much. Passing overhead now, we have a Janet 737, one of the classified flights that fly employees to Special Access Program facilities, most often Groom Lake and Tonopah. This one has a call sign Janet 15 and looks to be heading to Groom Lake based on ADSB. From here we can now see out over the range. The really tall mountain back there is Bald Mountain near Rachel in Area 51. Crossing through the restricted airspace, we have a group of 3 Black Hawk helicopters heading to parts unknown. These flights aren't showing up on ADSB tracking, so I don't know where they took off from, possibly from Nellis. And here is Papoose Lake. I want to start with a wider shot to get some perspective. Now, I did do some contrast adjustment in post to cut down on the atmospheric haze that's present from 46 miles away, which had the unfortunate side effect of bringing out some dust particles there on the left side of the frame. I decided not to edit those out just so the slight blur doesn't look like I'm covering up any hidden entrances or anything. As mentioned previously, I'm looking to my north, and that large mountain in the back is Bald Mountain. You can even make out the Bald Mountain facility there on top, and the Papoose Range is right there in front of it, with the dry lake bed in front of that. Now, I shot this video before the S4 film was released, and I was interested to see what new photographic evidence was going to be presented to supposedly prove S4's existence. And, well, honestly, I wasn't particularly impressed with this aspect of the film. The new photo was an edit of one of Gabe Ziefman's aerial shots that had been cropped and selectively contrast adjusted until some vague squares appeared. I firmly believe this to be a case of pareidolia, and this is just as likely to be a combination of heavily artifacted Joshua trees and natural cracks in the ground. And you could basically make odd geometric shapes appear anywhere in the image by editing it in this way. Now, proponents of S4's existence allege that the hangar doors are extremely camouflaged, so I'm not expecting to be able to see a closed hangar door from this distance of 46 miles, but theoretically we should be able to see if one were open, and we could definitely see any ground activity that might be taking place, whether that's vehicles, something like the bus that allegedly would pull up to the hangars and drop off employees. Things like that would certainly be visible, and we can even see quite a few Joshua trees pretty clearly, so something the size of a bus or a truck or an aircraft like a helicopter would definitely be visible at this distance. So I'm definitely going to be looking out for things like that. One thing to keep in mind in regards to vehicles is that the tire tracks that are often pointed to on Google Earth aren't necessarily smoking gun evidence for S4, because there is documented evidence of people going out to Papoose Lake for unrelated reasons. It's not this totally inaccessible place that nobody ever goes. In fact, base employees have gone out there both driving and flying by helicopter. In fact, there is a really old audio interview with a former camo dude, which I tried to find again, but I couldn't, where he describes sometimes driving out there and running shooting drills. So that's one potential reason for tire tracks unrelated to S4, and seeing a white camo dude pickup might not be out of the question. Now, I'm about 95% confident that this small hill right here is where the film alleges that the hangars are, and this lines up with what I remember of the old photos on Bob Lazar's website back in the day. I could be wrong because of the flattened perspective caused by extreme telephoto, but I played with three-dimensional Google Earth imagery, and I'm pretty sure that this is in fact it. Now again, I don't think there would be enough detail at this distance to see any closed doors, provided they are camouflaged, but if one were to open and I happen to be observing the hill at the right time, I should be able to capture that, or at the very least get before and after imagery of the hill. I'll be looking around elsewhere on the lake bed and in the surrounding hills to see if I can spot any vehicles, aircraft, or anything else unusual in the vicinity. As always, let me know if you see anything I missed in the footage. Well, after observing for several hours until the sun started to get too low in the sky to get usable video, it was time to pack up and continue on to the next phase. I've done night observations out here before, and I may do so again, but I've got a lot on my schedule for this episode, so I won't be doing that this time. I do have several hours worth of video, and I haven't gone through every second of it yet. I'm currently still in the camp of being an unconvinced skeptic of the Lazar story, but I'm always a big believer in going out and seeing things for myself and gathering open source intelligence, especially on these hard to photograph regions of the NTTR. Repeated visits to this viewpoint may eventually lead to some footage of activity at Papoose Lake, and this will certainly be worthy of discussion and analysis. For now, let's head back down the mountain and see what we can find on the other side of the restricted zone at Area 51. All right, well, I'm gonna call that enough of staring at this particular dry lake bed for now. So I'm gonna be moving on to the next phase of this journey and see if I can get to the bottom of this hill before the sun finishes setting. Wish me luck. As I was descending the mountain, I kept hearing a strange rustling on the trail beside me, and looking around, I saw two glowing eyes in the bushes. Turns out, this little guy had been following me the whole way. He ended up escorting me all the way back to my car for miles. I wonder if he knows where the UFOs are. Heading back down the trail in the dark, I'm making my way towards the highway and eventually up towards the town of Alamo. I'm planning on some early morning base viewing, but first, it's time to head to the Area 51 border to do some night sky recon. I'm meeting up with the awesome crew from the channel Project Fear, since they hit me up wanting to do some night vision videography of the Area 51 airspace a while back for their upcoming Area 51 project. I gave them a rundown of the thermal and night vision gear that I typically use, and they invited me up for a night to join them for some base adventures. Arriving in Alamo, I met up with them at their motel and took them out to one of my favorite spots in the Tikaboo Valley that's close enough to the Area 51 perimeter to sometimes get low-flying aircraft on thermals, but far enough from the main Groom Lake Road where the camo dudes are unlikely to harass you all night. Or so I thought. Maybe 10 minutes after arriving, the camo dudes were already giving us an unusual show of force. Immediately, a set of headlights appeared on the small dirt road to our right, and one of them even blasted a siren at us, which I didn't get on film unfortunately, but was something I had never heard them do before. After watching us from a distance and realizing we weren't the average tourists likely to be easily scared off, they greeted us with frequent drive-bys, sometimes with their headlights off. One interesting thing for viewers to note about the camo dudes is that even though they may follow you out on these dirt roads, if you flip the script and start approaching them, they will almost always retreat. See, what did I say?
That's so funny. Oh shit.
Yeah. The night sky proved pretty quiet tonight, and other than the typical evening Janet flights and quite a few meteors, there wasn't a lot of activity. No low-flying bombers or mysterious Doritos sighted this time. Getting eyes on Area 51 isn't as easy as many people might think, and the climb required is definitely strenuous, especially when carrying equipment and camping gear for an overnight. And visibility is greatly dependent on the weather. I've had what I thought would be a clear day quickly turn into wind and clouds that interfere with the view. My plan now is to take a couple-hour power nap in my car and start my hike around 4:30 in the morning, so rather than do an overnight on the peak itself, I'll do the hike in the dark, which means I can carry less gear, but it also is going to mean the ascent is a little more tricky. When most people think of Area 51 viewing, they think of Tikaboo Peak, which has been the classic, semi-well-known mountain with a base view at a distance of 26 miles, but for now I'll be climbing a different mountain in the range called No Name Peak. Originally, this mountain was identified by Gary, who runs the Area 51 research website Lazy G Ranch, who confirmed that the peak did have a view of the base using viewshed analysis software. My climb last year ended up being the first documented ascent of No Name Peak, and I've since done 3 more climbs. I've started seeing a number of other explorers take on this climb as well, which is great to see, and it's now been added to some of the mapping apps that I use with a rough approximation of the route I took, shown here with a dotted line. The advantage to this mountain over the more well-known Tikaboo are that you don't have the weather station camera that the base uses to spy on you, and you also have a slightly different view of the base, with a certain area being visible that isn't visible from Tikaboo. Last year I was able to document the first imagery of this area where the Janet flights park, and even managed to capture the footage of passengers themselves exiting the flights here at Area 51, which is something that hadn't been captured before. And just my luck, there's been some rain clouds that have moved in and we're getting a little bit of rain, but according to the weather reports, this should clear up in the next few hours. Hopefully those are accurate so I don't have too wet of a hike ahead of me. If I were going to Tikaboo, I would drive straight through this wash, but I'm going to pull over in this little clearing to my right and get a few hours of sleep and then start my hike up No Name Peak from here. The overall hike is only about 1.5 miles, but there's no marked trail or anything, so it's a lot of climbing over rocks and cutting through bushes. There's not quite as much loose shale as there is on the way up Tikaboo though, so that is the one advantage here. All right, well, it's about 4 a.m. and unfortunately the rain hasn't quite stopped as much as I would have liked, but working up the courage to head out there and start this climb. Should be interesting. Well, I've got, I think, about 1.5 miles or so. I definitely don't recommend doing a hike like this in this sort of weather, especially because it gets pretty steep towards the last leg and involves a lot of rock climbing. So it's going to be slippery. I have shoes with pretty good traction on them, so I'm not too worried, but I'm definitely going to be playing it pretty cautious. I am just hoping that this storm ends by the time I get to the peak, because getting all the way up there without any visibility is not going to be ideal. Weather where it quickly dashed as what had been rain now turned into a blizzard. This is probably about the least ideal conditions one could be doing this climb in, so 0 out of 10 do not recommend. Whew. My best hope was to take shelter behind some rocks and wait for the sun to rise and hope that this storm would pass in the next hour or so.
Flash, request RTB through Sally Corridor and declaring an emergency for Hongyan for Snake 2.
Thankfully, although the weather conditions were less than ideal for perfect imagery, there was a break in the clouds. Let's take a look at Dreamland.
Left base, gear down, 3-2.
The morning Janet flights are arriving, ferrying passengers from the terminal at Harry Reid Airport here to Area 51. Military and civilian contractor employees ready to work on whatever classified programs they may be assigned to. The RCS range section at the north end is visible, though not quite as good as from Tikaboo. We can see one of the antennae there, and the top of another one. We can see a truck of some kind driving out, looks like towards the back gate or Rachel Gate. That makes sense, considering that's the entry and exit point that most trucks seem to use. Some water tanks there on the hillside. Towering above Area 51, we can look at the Papoose Mountain Range from the other side this time, and the Papoose Mountain facility there on top. Here we have Hangar 18 and the associated support buildings. There's some movement near the Janet terminal. Looks like a fuel tanker driving down the tarmac. On the far south end of the base, I've been seeing several vehicles pull up to this hangar here, which is a relatively new construction built in 2014 to house sensitive aircraft. I wonder if something in there is being prepped for a mission. If you've made it to the end of today's expedition, I appreciate you sticking around. My intent with each episode is not to tell you what to think, but rather to spark curiosity about these hidden places in the desert and provide a window into them through the lens of my camera. Whether or not a particular facility houses saucers from another civilization or the next generation of human innovation, it's the mysteries that drive me. Every distant mountain peak adorned with various towers and domes, remote valleys with seemingly endless dirt roads stretching into the horizon, clandestine buildings patrolled by camouflage-clad guards, hangars containing things that may never see the light of day. Though I encourage everyone to evaluate evidence for themselves, I'm happy to give my opinion where it's warranted. The S4 movie was well produced, with fantastic visuals, and was a great retelling of the Bob Lazar story, so I give props to director Luigi Venditelli for the work that went into it. Personally, I remain a skeptic of Lazar's core claims for reasons mainly relating to his educational background and financial history. I have not seen enough evidence for me to overcome the hurdles and consider myself a believer. That said, the story is certainly compelling, and I honestly wouldn't even bother discussing it on this channel if I didn't think it was. There are other alleged Area 51 whistleblowers who I've never discussed and never will, simply because I find their stories pretty weak, and they often get basic details about the base wrong. Lazar, on the other hand, certainly knew what he was talking about with base operations, even before they entered into the public zeitgeist, with things like the Janet flights, EG&G, etc., which is why I personally think he did work at the base for a limited time, and likely created the story based on details that he overheard to impress his friend John Lear. As I said, that's just my opinion, and viewers are free to draw their own conclusions here. I'll link a couple of writings on Lazar down below that I find pretty interesting to read, one by Tom Mahood, another by Area 51 explorer and researcher Glenn Campbell, who's among my biggest inspirations for starting this channel. Glenn takes a more philosophical lens to Lazar's S4 story in his 1994 article, which I'll read a few excerpts from here. Maybe Lazar is a fraud, and maybe his tale is no more real than Alice in Wonderland, but that doesn't mean we can't learn something from him. If Lazar's story is fiction, it's filled with richness of plausible details and complex dilemmas you can't find in most popular novels these days. The Lazar story is far superior to most science fiction in creating a world that could be true. There's probably no better place on Earth to put a secret saucer base, be it real or fictional, than Papoose Dry Lake in Nevada's vast military restricted area. Even if no secret saucer base ever existed in the restricted zone, just the fact that something this important could be effectively hidden here is disturbing in itself.
Alright, so up now, my lunch break, well, the next two videos are my lunch break. First video, his story, not ours, Unmasking History, episode 29, and then Old World Richmond, Shall We Play a Game, episode 30. Here we go.
Wondering whether we're going to win or lose the battle between good and evil. For the first time in a long time, I actually have a positive outlook on where we're headed for the time being in the near future. We don't build the way the past civilizations did. We're not there yet, and we're not even close. It may mean that we still have time to grow and develop. We have much more to learn as a whole. Just say that every civilization gets to the point of this incredible type of architecture before their timeline ends. This would mean that we're not even close to the end of our current civilization's timeline. Welcome to episode 29 of my lunch break. I hope you're all having a great day. And if you're new, welcome. And I want to give a shout out to our sponsors over on Patreon. I want to thank you guys very much for helping keep this channel running. Being a sponsor on Patreon really helps this channel. You can also be a sponsor on Patreon for only $19.99 a month. I'll leave that link right in the description below. Thank you. Now, before we begin, I was given this from my family. Apparently, my great-grandfather was a master mason and a leader of the Masonic Lodge. I now have his 1855 book, and I'll be reading through this to see if we can find any new answers. There are some interesting chapters in here that talk specifically about construction, which is exactly what we are researching. Hopefully something in here can give us some hidden answers and some new knowledge that we don't already have in circulation. I'm going to take some time to go through the whole thing, but if I find anything important, I'll be sharing it in future episodes. Out of all the chapters here that you can see, comment below which chapter you want me to dive into first. That being said, let's go to Massachusetts. Here we have Bristol County Superior Courthouse. The Romanesque style building was completed in 1894. This was the first courthouse on this site. Wait, no. Second courthouse. What? Third? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. This is the fourth courthouse on this site. What came before this? This story is off to a horrible start for the mainstream narrative. Fourth courthouse on this site. Who are we kidding anymore? Now they tell us that Frederick Law Olmsted was a landscape architect. He liked to design the way plants were laid out, and trees, and you get the picture. So he goes on to design parks for people to enjoy. He has 2 kids, and does anyone want to take a guess who designs the fourth courthouse here on this same site? You guessed it, Samuel Hannaford and Sons. Oh, no, that was a different episode. I meant the Olmsted sons. So these 2 sons were in charge of drawing and constructing the first courthouse and the demolition. They had to draw and construct courthouse number 2. and then knocked that one down. Then the sons had to do the same thing for courthouse number 3. And they finally let the sons of the plant layout drawer keep courthouse number 4 up. Were these sons really in charge of the first 3 courthouses? They really are trying to tell us that they built 3 previous courthouses on this site and knocked them all down. Now this story gets really interesting, and I was blown away to see that they were actually giving us a name of a construction company and telling us where the granite came from. The name of the construction company was supposedly Beatty and Wilcox of Fall River, and they got the granite from a quarry in Barr, Vermont. I'm not sure how it was transported from Vermont, which is 216 miles away, and this was during a time where most people were riding around with horse and wagon. Cars had just come out 5 years prior. Not everyone had a car at this point. And the shipping trucks that we have today were definitely not around. So even if they had a car, what were they doing? Stuffing massive slabs of granite in the back seat of their Model T? So does this logistically make sense? Of course not. No, it doesn't. This is a 212-minute drive in 2023 with a car that we have today. Just stop and think about carrying massive slabs of granite in the back seat of a wagon, because that's most likely what they had at this time. The horse would have had to pull it for 216 miles. How many horses did they have doing this? Who leads this type of excursion? If this truly happened, this would be amazing. There would be children's songs all about it, and they'd still be sung today. How ridiculous does this sound? I cannot be more appreciative that they tried to give us the information. But come on, this is not realistic, and it's absurd to think that this actually happened. What could come next? Please don't tell me the Freemasons get involved again. Oh, there's no way. That would be just way too obvious that this is an old world building. Oh no. No. What is this? There was a ceremony coordinated by the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts. Well, do we need any more proof? Are we all fully awake now and understand the lie? How many times does this story repeat itself? How many times do the Masons get involved? Are they actually building these buildings, or are they finding these buildings and getting them for free? Hence the free Masons. Is anyone still on the fence if this building is from the old world? Should we add yet another proof that this is not logistically possible and fully drive this thing home? The courthouse's construction was said to have begun in June of 1892. In March of 1894, they're planning to plant flowers around the courthouse. I'm no flower planting expert, but I'm pretty sure you don't plant flowers until the project is completed. Was this courthouse built in less than 2 years? Is that honestly possible? Considering they would have had to bring that granite hundreds of miles by horse and wagon, or Model T, and once it's there, they would have actually had to construct it. What is going on here? I'm so glad I'm not the only one reading this anymore, and I have all of you to see it with me. This is insane. This story is absolutely insane. 216 miles with granite over and over with horse and wagon. It doesn't make sense. I would love to know how someone can be fully aware of this information and be fully confident that the narrative is 100% factual. I truly think that the time period where people don't see the truth has ended. Once you want to see the truth, you are able to now. And I want to thank this individual for pointing this one out. It's such a great find. I just want to remind everyone that I'm going to Santa Monica, California in a couple weeks. And if there are any hidden old world structures or places that you want me to check out while being there, just put that in the comments below. Now we have a bonus for today. The Leuven Town Hall. This is located in Belgium and was constructed in 1469. Of course it was. Now for this one, remember, they're not going to tell you an architect, a construction company, where the materials came from. They're not even going to try, because the 1400 date was working. People didn't question it because it was too old. But now we're starting to wake up and realize we were never given any of these answers. And these are key questions to ask. If they don't know who built it, or who constructed it, or where the materials came from, some of the basic questions of building a building, then how can we trust that they know what date this thing was built in? Or for what? Or why? The cavemen of 1469 really knew how to put a chisel to work. My eyes tell me that I'm being lied to, but let's continue. This is no ordinary town hall. I was looking at my town hall the other day, and trying to compare it to this one. It was really tough to find a single similarity between a town hall built today and this one, built 550 years ago. I settled on they both have lights. So the cavemen's technology destroyed us. Okay, now we all know I'm joking about the cavemen. These people were obviously so much more advanced than we are today. The narrative is clearly lying about the timeline in human history. We are not at the peak of human history. We are held down, suppressed in my opinion. The building that still stands proves this, and this is why they attempt to destroy these buildings, time and time again. For example, in 1914, a world war broke out. They attempted to bomb the site, but missed. What do you think happened 25 years later? Another world war and another bomb. This time connecting and destroying a corner, along with a major portion of the bottom. We then were forced to repair it, which you can now clearly see our pathetic construction compared to the past civilization. It's right in front of our faces, a clear giveaway. This is possibly the best physical proof, showing the past civilization versus us, showing evolution is a myth, showing that we are being lied to at every turn. And these buildings were put here by a much different group of people with a much deeper agenda. This building was not constructed to be a town hall. It was built for something much, much more important. Now don't forget that there are a bunch of brand new t-shirts. You can find that right below this video. Every purchase helps support the channel and goes towards more boots on the ground work. Liking this video and commenting helps to share this video with new people, as well as when you subscribe to the channel. I couldn't be more thankful for all of the support you guys are giving. Our Twitter account is up and running, and we're over on Rumble as well. Both of these links will be in the description below. If you have anything to add or any thoughts on the video, or have any ideas for future videos, please put that in the comments below. Thank you all for your support, and I hope you all have a great day. I'll be back very soon with much more. See ya.
Don't trust what you see. Don't listen to your senses. Trust what you are told.
I hope you're all having a great day, and if you're new, welcome. And I want to thank all of our sponsors over on Patreon. Thank you to FlatEarthDave.com. You can check out his app. I'll put the link in the description, and you can use my referral code, MLB. The app is awesome. It shows a lot of videos that are really hard to find. They've got them all in great playlists. He also has my lunch break on the homeschool section of the app, which is really cool. Thank you for that. Thank you to Maddie Kevs, Rebecca K, Michael Hastings, Jason Brunson, Don Gaston, and Victor Perez. You guys are all awesome and helping this channel out a lot. And for $19.99 a month, you can also be a sponsor of this channel. I'll put that link right in the description below. Thank you. Here we are in Rome, Italy. This was constructed in 1317 and took 600 years to build. Could you imagine? That would be more believable than what I'm about to tell you. And what I'm about to tell you is the mainstream narrative. This is actually Richmond, Virginia. It's named the Cathedral of Sacred Heart, and it was constructed in 2 years. Just looking at this place, I wish we could still build like this. I would love to see more of these built today. Instead, we have 0 of them being built today, not one. Where's the technology gone? So they say the construction began in 1903, and they put the finishing touches on this 144-foot high cathedral in 1905, built with a granite foundation, limestone walls, and a copper dome that stretches 118 feet. The construction was perfect to the nearest inch. The cathedral is 1,728 inches wide and 1,728 inches tall. It's exact. Absolutely incredible stuff. And I'm so glad we are given the name of this fireproof tile designer, Mr. Raphael. I'm glad we won't be having any fires in this building, thanks to this guy. If we take a look inside, this is just your normal, standard 1900s building. It was simple construction, and I'm shocked it took them so long to build in 1903. What was the holdup? Was their horse not up for a granite pole that day? 2 years to construct this. What a joke. Now here they were clearly destroying the original. It was even better than what we see today, if you can imagine that. In the beginning, it had marble altar rails, but those were destroyed because who needs marble altar rails? If my house came with marble rails, you know I'd be marching over to the model home that very day. And if they didn't get it out of my house, I would be forced to get my hammer out. It's just unacceptable. So far, this story is insane. 2 years to construct this place in 1903, before any sort of shipping trucks were available, A nice in-depth story about how these huge granite blocks were transported here would be really helpful, but no. We are not told that information, of course. And they are back to saying that architects are also builders, which they are not. Here we are told Joseph McGuire is the guy who draws this place up on a piece of paper. And he did such a great job drawing it on that paper that it just appeared here in 1905. Something had to have happened in 1904 and 1903 though, right? How many men were hired to do this job? Or was it just Mr. McGuire alone building this himself? Or did he have a few sons to help him out? We all know how much they love to tell us about the sons at this point, because as long as you have sons, you're gonna get the job done. And we all know it'll only take a few short months. And here I'm looking at this place on Google Earth. And normally when you find one of these incredible structures, you will find others on the block, or at least things that don't belong. This is very important to remember in this research. If one thing survives from the old world, there normally will be other hidden gems that made it through as well. And just wait to see how right this theory is. Get ready to have your mind blown today. But first, here we have this pillar, and our current civilization has no idea what to do with it. So what do we do? What should we do? Well, we should dress it up and disguise it, of course, with the ugliest parking sign you've ever seen in your entire life. This is a disgrace, honestly. This is just as good as graffiti. These buildings deserve much more respect than this. Come on, Virginia, you're better than this. Can we zoom in on this picture a little? Is there something behind this yellow parking thing? Is this thing hiding something? If anyone is there close by, can you please go over there and see what's behind this thing and send me a picture to my email address? I would love to share with everyone what is actually there and written on this thing. I'm 100% sure it doesn't say, park over here or you're gonna get a boot on your car. Okay, so I wasn't wrong. Let's look literally right across the street. And what do we have here? The Da Vinci Center. Okay, let's have some fun. What is happening here? The stone on this thing looks so old and incredible. Multiple arches and a suspect window that clearly proves that we have action and something going on underground. I would love to go inside this building and see what they have going on. I would not be shocked at all if there are tunnels. This building is now a part of Virginia Commonwealth University. So whenever you try to find any information on it, it just comes up with enroll here and all this nonsense. Great way to hide the history of a building. Turn it into a college. Let's continue down the block and see if this block is giving us anything else. Monroe Park giving us a nice aerial star symbol. Very interesting. And what do we have here? We have another building that is from the old world, of course. Grace and Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. So another church on the same block. How many churches do these people need in 1900? Okay, so this place is founded in 1858. Notice they say founded. This was not constructed, and they admit it right here. It was found. So how many people even lived in this town in 1858? 38,000 people in Richmond, with like 12,000 that were slaves. So they weren't going to church. So 26,000 people needed these massive structures? Does this make sense? Remember, there were also children a part of this population. So who constructed this place? And I'm just gonna add in the next structure right now, so we can prove this point beyond a doubt. Right next door, from this church, we have the Altria Theater, holding 3,565 people, while also having an 18,000 square foot ballroom. This one was also built in just 2 years. Of course it was. It also holds a basement where the Richmond Police Department got to go set up shop. There's enough room down there for office space, classrooms, a gymnasium, and a shooting range. That's it? No, that's not it, of course. They also had a swimming pool. This was simple construction in 2 years in the early 1900s. Very easy. Which construction company was in charge of building these buildings on the same exact block that completely destroy our current day construction? How can this be possible? Anyone going to see Baby Shark live? Should have a great time. I wonder how many of them know that they are about to go into an old world building. Let's even take a look at this thing. Just going straight up and spiraling for about 75 feet in the air. Something that Bobby can go work on over on the side for a couple weeks with his special chisel. Then lift that thing up on the scaffolding, get some glue on it, and it'll be over there forever. Easy. Simple construction 100 years ago. This is what we are told. This is the world we are in. We are being lied to at every turn, in my opinion. And given these crazy stories, they are hiding the truth about these buildings and giving us these crazy stories that don't make any sense. And then don't explain why we never build anything close to this ever again. And especially not in just 2 years, But they did it all the time back then. It was no problem at all. 2 years, done. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed today's... Wait, no. There's more? There's more. The Jefferson Hotel, right down the street. Construction began in 1892. It took 25 years to build. Could you imagine? Of course not. This thing only took 3 years to build. Finished right up in 1895. Because they had to meet their deadline, 6 years later, in 1901, the entire interior was destroyed by fire. The restoration process took 6 years and reopened in 1907. So let me get this straight. It took double the time to restore it than it did to build the entire thing. And anyone who has watched my previous episodes will know about the fires, proving that these are old world buildings. I'm just glad that there was only one fire this time. I don't think I could handle the second fire. Oh no. What is this? In 1944, they tried to destroy it again? Another fire broke out in 1944 and killed 6 people. Could you imagine what was inside that place that they didn't want us to see? Is this how we build hotels today? Could we possibly construct any of these buildings that we've seen today? Is it possible? No, it isn't. And not in 2-3 years. What is going on with this college of VCU? Did they find these buildings and repurpose them? In my opinion, I would say yes. And are they the only college that's done this? We will get into that in the future episodes. There is much more to discover. Wait, are we still not done with this block at VCU? Right next door from the hotel, we have this? Anyone want to let me know what this place is? Located on 19 West Franklin Street, Richmond, Virginia? No name, no nothing. It's just sitting here, not being used. People walking right past like it's nothing. Completely blind to what is sitting right in front of them. It's the nail in the coffin for episode 30. And for fun to rub it in, of course they have a Founders Hall building where the people that found all these buildings lived. Yep, that one right there, that's ours. I don't know, guys. What should we name this building that we found? Well, we found it, so let's name it Founders Hall. Perfect. Where we are told that we live is much, much different than where we actually are. This is not normal, and it is very clear at this point. Remember, we are unsure which building will be next to go up in flames. It's so repetitive, and we need to keep making this known so that we all wake up and see them when we walk past them. They are the hidden key to the past civilizations, in my opinion. And these buildings are being destroyed to hide our true history. A fire is a great way to say it was an accident. It's one way to destroy a building without putting blame on someone. Who do we get mad at if a guy isn't hitting it with a wrecking ball? Fires ruin the old world without a planned demolition. And don't forget that the owner surely gets their money back through insurance claims instead of paying for a demolition process. And I don't feel like ending this episode yet, so thank you for this comment and letting me know about the Hungarian Parliament building. Construction for this massive project began in 1885, a 4-story, 315-foot high, 691-room palace with 10 courtyards, 29 staircases. This is your everyday building in 1885, of course. Now, the incredible thing about this place is that it's not just about one building. The entire block is filled with buildings that do not belong to our timeline. We have the Memorial of National Cohesion, the Ministry of Agriculture, and of course, a chocolate museum. They should have added a few more pillars of the chocolate museum. How embarrassing. I'm not sure how these people could go to work in such a horrible looking building. The chocolate museum deserves more. What a joke. And here we have hundreds of people just walking past the chocolate museum, not understanding what they're walking next to at all. Could you imagine we built a chocolate museum like this today? I think people would come from all over the world to see the construction process. All right, back to this Parliament building. It's massive. They say that 100,000 people were involved in its construction. They used 40 million bricks and 500,000 precious stones and 88 pounds of gold were used. Remember, as long as they say they had the money and the manpower, it could be your average Joe or prisoner, like we've shown before. Doesn't matter who it is. They will bring the architect's drawing to life in no time, every time. They will be fully trusted with the 88 pounds of gold, and any one of those 100,000 people could get the job done. Just call them over here, pick it out of a hat. The project will be completed perfectly. 8 years after the construction began, it was done. In 1904, of course. This sentence right here proves to me that this building doesn't belong to our timeline. Today, the government uses only a small portion of the building. Of course they do. They found and repurposed this building, in my opinion. They don't need the whole thing because it wasn't built for this purpose. Whoever built this building needed the whole thing. They needed all 691 rooms. They needed all the courtyards. And they needed the chocolate factory building as well. The whole area was of importance. It wasn't just barely used. And we all fully understand this now. The trick is done. We did not construct this building in 8 years in the 1800s, along with the rest of the town. And we only need a small portion of it today, in 2023. Something incredible happened here in this area. And I'm just gonna take you guys all around this area on Google Earth here for a little bit and show you that this used to be an incredible empire, in my opinion. The buildings are all so perfectly laid out. The buildings are all repurposed and turned into random things. This one is the Americana Public Library. And it just so happens to be right next to all of this. After everything I've seen on this subject, I have seen some incredible structures. We all have. But this town right here might be the most impressive one I've ever seen. This was not built to be a library. Who builds a random library like this? Do any of our towns have any plans to draw up one of these and get the job done in a couple years? No. Are we even close to constructing anything like this? No, we're not. We couldn't build this if we had 10 million people and unlimited funds, in my opinion. It's not about the money, and it's not about the amount of people. It's about the technology. And I want to make this very clear. You have to understand how to construct something like this. Something that will last forever, unless it is demolished or lit on fire, which we've seen many times. And it's not just this library. It's the chocolate store. It's the Parliament building. It's the entire city of Budapest. This is incredible stuff. If anyone can go inside these places and get a video or pictures, please send that to my email, mylunchbreak1@gmail.com. Just incredible stuff. I'm glad we covered that. There's so much in this city. Don't be shocked if we come back and revisit this city with further detail and even more buildings in the near future. Don't forget that there are a bunch of brand new t-shirts. You can find that right below this video. Every purchase really helps support the channel and goes towards more boots on the ground work. Liking this video and commenting helps to share this video with new people, as well as when you subscribe to the channel. I couldn't be more thankful for all the support you guys give. Our Twitter account is up and running, and we are over on Rumble as well. Both of those links will be in the description below. If you have anything to add, or any thoughts on the video, or have any ideas for future videos, just put that in the comments below. Thank you all for your support, and I hope you all have a great day. I will be back very soon with much more. See ya.
Don't trust what you see. Don't listen to your senses. Trust what you are told.
All right. Up next is Radioactive Drew inside the decommissioning of San Fernando nuclear. I don't think it's San Fernando, San Onofre. I think that's how you say it. Nuclear power station. Anyway, here we go. And then after this video will be one more video, and then we're gonna end it for the night. So here we go.
Process of being decommissioned. And so I'm curious to see what goes into decommissioning a site such as this and how radioactive areas of it are.
I mean, if you're not familiar with the operating principles here, the heat source is the reactor with the fuel in it inside the containment building. That serves as the heat source to supply hot water to the steam generators, big boilers. And inside the boilers, you create steam, right? This is the secondary loop. That steam is processed through a turbine, spin the turbine, make electricity, connect it to the grid for our customers. Well, the steam exits the turbine and exhausts to a condenser, and it becomes water again, okay? Condensate, as we call it. And that condensate is treated through these full flow demineralizers to take out any iron or copper or anything like that might be inside the water. And then that water is returned to the steam generators through a feed water system. And that's basically a closed loop. It continues while we operate the plant and make electricity. Okay, the plant would operate on a cycle of about 18 months of running continuously at 100% power. Then we would shut down the plant, dismantle the reactor enough to remove the fuel, replace some of the fuel assemblies, and then, you know, restore the reactor, heat it back up again, and start over and run for another 18 months or so.
So now how long would the refueling process take?
On this plant, it took about 2 months to go through the whole process. And while we were refueling a reactor, we'd be on this side of the plant doing maintenance on a turbine and other systems as well. Today, I think there's probably involved for all our operations, probably about 400 people, 450, something like that.
Wow.
It varies day to day.
Yeah.
But
so this was a pressurized water reactor?
The San Onofre plant was a pressurized water reactor.
Okay.
This is units 2 and 3. Over there used to be unit 1.
Okay.
The site we started developing this site in 1964. Built unit 1, operated it until 1992, shut it down, and then we dismantled it mostly in the early 2000s, okay? And in its place, we built a dry storage facility for the storage of spent nuclear fuel. So that's what exists on that location. Over here, starting in the mid-1970s, we started developing this site to construct units 2 and 3. And these sites were built together and came out of the ground together here. And they went operational in 82, 83, 84 time frame. I forget the exact dates. Okay, and they operated until 2012. 2012, we had some issues with the new steam generators we installed here. And after some consideration for about a year and a half, we decided the most economical thing we could do would be to shut the plant down and move into decommissioning. Okay, so that brought us to where we are today. We started this active dismantlement work in 2020 after we went through a very rigorous environmental review with the state of California.
So that was with the state of California, not the NRC?
No, the NRC, we already had the approvals we needed from the NRC to start, but we needed approvals from the state. California Coastal Commission, California State Lands Commission, we needed their reviews and approvals, and we finally got through all of that and finished with it in 2019, and then we started the real work in 2020. Plant's built on Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton. Edison leases this property from the Navy for the purpose to operate, nuclear plants here. So, we're in the process of dismantling the plant, then restoring this site to a condition that's going to be acceptable to the Navy to take the site again when we're finished here. The United States government's responsibility to come take the fuel, find a repository for it, and then take the fuel from all nuclear plants.
Okay.
And so far they've failed on their responsibility. So until they figure that out, the fuel's kind of stranded here, like it is at all commercial nuclear plants.
The non-radiological parts are all easy compared to everything else, right?
Everything has its difficulties. I wouldn't say the radiological side's any more difficult. Some different methods are employed to control contamination and so on. Yeah.
Okay. And now what are usually the contaminants you have to deal with in that environment?
Actually, this is a very clean plant compared to some nuclear plants. But mainly cobalt-60, some cesium. Those would be the things from a radiological point of view that we would be most concerned with controlling the contamination.
And that's all just from neutron activation of the metals?
Well, activation of materials, contaminated, basically metals that are in the plant.
Okay.
Corrosion products, for example, is where the cobalt-60 comes from. So you have wear of pumps and valves, and that wear has cobalt in it. Cobalt gets in the nuclear steam supply system. It becomes activated. That's where the cobalt's coming from.
So now, what's this? Why would this be radiological? Why they have tags on them?
It's really just potentially contaminated. Just out of abundance of caution, we got it tagged like this.
Okay.
This is just part of the. This is where we're standing is part of the intake structure. Okay, so when we were operating the plant, we drew water in from the ocean through some long conduits that are installed offshore. Mm-hmm. That water flowed in here and then went to Unit 3 or Unit 2 to cool the condensers, and then it was discharged back to the ocean. So that was basically an open loop to the ocean.
Okay.
Okay, so that was its whole purpose, was to cool the condenser. Now, so, you know, the plant generated about 1,150 megawatts when we were electrical power, but to create 1,150 megawatts, you need about 4,000 megawatts of thermal energy. So it turns out that, like all these plants, most of the energy ends up going to the ocean, the heat sink, because they're only about 30 to 33% efficient.
Wow.
Okay, that's if you had an oil-fired plant, it'd be the same, or a coal-fired plant, it'd be about the same efficiency. So we no longer bring water into the plant to cool it. We don't reject any heat now to the ocean. All of this system is isolated basically
so now, how
from
much
the ocean.
heat actually was it like that would come like from the plant back into the ocean? Like,
so there was a small
out of?
temperature rise in the water that we deposited back in the ocean. Just a couple of degrees.
Oh, wow,
okay.
That's not bad at all.
Because it was distributed through a bunch of diffusers on these conduits.
Okay.
Okay. Processing about 1 million gallons per minute per unit when we were operating. So about a lot of water. There were huge pumps that were installed here, or just beyond those walls. There's big circulating pumps that were used to move the water from the ocean through the condenser and then back to the ocean. In this area, it's been removed now, but in this area is where the traveling screens were to take out any debris that was in the ocean water, like seaweed, for example. We've also entrained some fish, right? Those fish would collect there, unharmed, and this elevator would lift them and sluice them back to the ocean through another conduit.
Wow.
So that was continuously happening, right? So any fish turned to the ocean basically unharmed. Now also sometimes marine mammals would come in, like sea lions.
Wow.
They would enter the conduits way offshore, take a ride down here, and end up right over there.
Oh man.
And it was like a smorgasbord, right?
I bet.
Right? So they would be consuming fish.
Probably one learned about that, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna."
They would come back. We would capture them. You see that cage?
Yeah.
Okay. So we would collect the marine mammals when they did arrive here in these cages, and then take them on a truck and put them back in the ocean someplace, right? And sometimes they would return. They'd find their way back.
So now everything below ground is going to be backfilled with concrete, right?
Not with concrete. In this area, we're going to fill this area with concrete because we need a good, solid surface to work off of. But the rest of the voids that are remaining after we complete this phase of decommissioning will be backfilled with native soils from here on site. So Drew, this is the Unit 3 turbine building. You can see this part of it's largely intact. That's what Unit 2 looked like just a few weeks ago.
So now these cranes, what were these primarily used for?
To service the turbine generator for maintenance,
okay.
the turbine rotors and the generator itself. So when we would shut down for the refueling outages, we would dismantle parts of the turbine, the generator, inspect, and then restore it. Because we wanted it to operate reliably for like 18 months continuously.
Mm-hmm.
These are remnants here of the Unit 3 turbine rotors. The contractor's been cutting these up into manageable pieces. You can see how big those components are. They're huge, right? At one time, you see all this scrap over here? They were basically turbines, right, with different stages. And they were like huge wheels that would spin when steam was admitted to them. And you can just see what's remaining here of all of this steel. So again, all this stuff, it gets chopped up into smaller pieces, and then it's going to be sent off site to be recycled.
So it's just primarily steel?
Just steel, okay. Yeah, carbon steel.
So this is what's left of the turbine. It's been cut up pretty good, and it is massive. There's a lot of material here. Kind of a loss for words at how incredibly huge all this is. And it's not until you're like really close up to something like this you can actually understand the scope and size of a power plant like this and how much energy it produced. It's very impressive.
The steam generator had to be reliable in its operation. For it to be reliable, it can't vibrate. To make sure it doesn't vibrate, you need a substantial foundation for that machine. The bottom of the turbine building, the foundation, is 15 feet thick of reinforced concrete. And on top of that foundation were built pedestals, basically columns, that rose up from that foundation to support the turbine. The turbine was not supported off this steel you see here. It was supported independently off of these columns or pedestals, as we call them. So that created the foundation so the turbine was reliable in its operation. Okay, and it was a very well balanced machine, again, so it doesn't vibrate, and operates reliably for like an 18-month run. It was rotating at 1,800 RPM, and it was generating voltage at 24,000 volts. And the output of the turbine generator was connected here to a huge transformer. And that transformer would boost the voltage up to 220,000 volts. And at one time there were power lines that connected from the switchyard here to that transformer. The voltage boosted here to the grid voltage, 220,000 volts, is connected to the grid, and then that's what was supplied to our customers. Of course, through a distribution network that reduced the voltage down to like what you use in your house, 120 volts or 220 volts, like that. So this switchyard today is really just an interconnect between Southern California Edison's transmission system and San Diego Gas and Electric's transmission system. They connect right here. So that's going to remain too. Everything else that you see here is removed to at least 3 feet below where we're standing. Then what remains is cleaned up, decontaminated to meet NRC license termination requirements. Then we're going to backfill everything. All the voids that we created will be backfilled with native soil. And then we'll stabilize this area basically back at this elevation, and we'll wait for the government to do its job with the spent nuclear fuel, okay, to remove it from this site. And you need health physics approval to remove any of this material, okay? So this is a typical sign that you might find for a radiation area here on site. This is a barrier beyond which, unless you meet these requirements, you're not supposed to go beyond that limit.
So you guys have different color rope that signifies different things here on site.
Yeah, this is yellow and magenta. It looks like the magenta's kind of faded out on this particular rope. It looks a bit more purple, but that's what this is, yeah.
Okay. So this is supposed to be a glass wall as it cuts. Like where you can look at it, you just can't cross it.
You don't reach over
it.
Yeah. Or anything like that, yeah.
Oh, there's definitely a increase here. Yeah, not a lot, but yeah, if you go right up to the, I mean, it's barely anything. Yeah, it's like maybe almost probably like 8 times above background.
You know, you're measuring count rate. We usually measure millim as the units we're using. So, you know, later today Jeff will show you our meters and so on.
Yeah, it was kind of cool with this one is I could actually switch it over to millirem and to counts and sieverts and grays and disintegrations.
What was the millirem? What was the millirem?
Something 50.
50 microrem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
60.
60 microrem.
Yeah, so I don't have a filter on here.
Pretty low.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, that's like, really, really low.
Containment dome. That is a really substantial structure. It's an engineering marvel, actually. So it's about 4 feet thick. It's reinforced with steel. And then after it was constructed, it was tensioned. Okay? We call this a post-tensioned reactor containment building. See this buttress right here with the nipple sticking off the side of it? That's a termination point for tendons that stretched around the building. There's 3 buttresses like this, 120 degrees apart. So once that building was tensioned, it had the equivalent strength of about 12 feet of steel reinforced concrete. Substantial building. So why was it so substantial? Because inside the building was the nuclear steam supply system that was operating at very high temperatures and pressures. So there was a lot of energy in the reactor coolant system. In an unlikely scenario where there was like a loss of coolant accident, where we had a sudden break in the reactor coolant system and the water escapes would immediately turn to steam, you'd have a huge pressure event inside the building, going from around ambient up to about 60 psi. So this building was designed to withstand those types of events. You know, you've heard of what happened at Chernobyl. Chernobyl didn't have a building like this. It was basically a tin structure, okay?
Because they just had like a cover over the top of the reactor.
It was like an industrial building, okay, unfortunately. And when things went wrong at Chernobyl, it didn't have a structure like this to protect the environment from the consequences of what's happening inside. So here we have a substantial building, lots of concrete, able to withstand the event, and it provides a lot of shielding too, okay? So you're asking, why do we have that place where we obviously made an opening? Back in 2009 and 10, we replaced the steam generators in units 2 and units 3, okay? The steam generators are big components. They weigh about 550 tons. It was too big to fit through the equipment hatch, which was just below this area. So to support the process of replacing the old steam generators with new ones, we had to make this opening. So to make the opening, we had to detension the building, remove the tendons, make the opening, replace the steam generators, then form this up, replace the rebar, place the concrete, let it cure, and then we could retension the building. So that's why you see that scar, if you will, up there.
So how long did that whole process take?
That took about 100 days per unit.
Wow.
Okay, with a very large force of people working here and a very super detailed schedule of many thousands of activities that had to be very carefully coordinated. It was quite a big project. That's why when we had the problem with these new steam generators, they're custom-made components. They've got about a 5-year lead time, and then you have to go through a replacement process like this. It became uneconomical for us to consider to you know, keep the plant here and wait for new ones to show up to replace them. So that's why we decided to shut the plant.
I'm curious though, because like that was like right around the same time as like, because what, Fukushima was in 2011, right? 2011. Yeah, and so I was always kind of curious. I'm like, was there like just a ton of pressure from the community, from the local government, from all this other stuff also? So like Southern California Edison was just like, you know what, fine, we'll listen to you guys since you guys are crying over this so much, we're just gonna give you what you want.
No, not really.
Okay.
What really transpired here was, yes, when we had the problems with the steam generators, that occurred in 2012, and as we investigated and understood better what had happened, yes, there was members of the public here that didn't want the plant to continue to operate.
But they never wanted it here in the first place.
Some people didn't, but there were other people that were either ambivalent about it or were supportive. So you had a whole range of opinions. But there were people here that didn't want it, and that's absolutely true. But, you know, from a technical perspective, we felt that we could have restarted the plant and operated at a lower power level and continued to operate. But convincing the regulator that we were able to do that became very hard and uncertain. So we finally just said it's better just to move on, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I was just always curious about that, because it was like such an interesting time period right there for nuclear energy, because everyone was like, Germany was shutting down so many of their plants and all this stuff, and then this happened, and I was just like, well, how much of this has to do with that? So yeah, you know, it has to do with Fukushima.
Fast forward to today, and it's a different thought process about nuclear today, right?
Yeah.
Especially in Western Europe right now, where there's a huge energy crunch, right? Imagine if those nuclear plants were still available and operating today. What would be the, you know, what would be the political issues around what's going on in Europe today? You know, when you make these decisions, you don't know what the future holds either.
So now, how are they going to take down these vessels? Because I was understanding they were going to do it from the bottom up.
Correct.
So
that's the plan.
How does that work?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Because that sounds engineerily challenging.
Well, imagine what it would take if you try to do it from the top down.
True.
Okay, it'd be pretty hard to do, and you have to manage all that material. If you do it from the bottom, you basically just hammer at the building from the outside with those big excavators, and from the inside too, until you weaken this structure to a point where it just basically collapses. Okay, so just weaken the structure in lifts of like 6 to 8 feet or so, give or take. The building settles, muck out all the concrete and rebar, dispose of it, and do it again. You do it over and over and over again, and eventually the building is gone. It's pretty cool, actually.
Now, how long would that take? How long is that process slated to take?
I don't remember precisely, but it's in the neighborhood of about 9 months to a year to remove the building.
Wow. This level of around 800 counts per minute is about 20 times above background radiation. And the type of radiation that I'm more than likely detecting is from gamma radiation based off the type of contamination that's here on the site. But now, to put things into perspective, let's go to another location. This is the Adamson House in Malibu, California, not too far away from San Onofre. I'm actually getting a higher level of radiation here at this fountain than what I was at San Onofre. And that's because these tiles actually contain uranium in the glazes, which make them radioactive. Granted, the type of radiation that is coming off of these tiles is mainly beta radiation, whereas the type of radiation I was detecting at San Onofre was gamma radiation.
So this building here, this is the fuel handling building for Unit 3. So this is a truck bay, this area. When new fuel arrived on site, it would come on a flatbed in specialized containers, okay? And then they would be, the containers would be lifted here through this small hatch, that hatch there, into the fuel handling building. Fuel assemblies would be inspected and then placed in the fuel pool, okay? And then those new fuel assemblies would be used in the reactor, and they would be used maybe 3 times for 3 cycles. So, you know, assume 3 18-month cycles.
Wow.
Typically, 2 to 3. And then
so they just kind of rotate them where they are.
Yeah, they would move them
reactor.
around. They would change the core configuration every refueling outage, replenish it with some new fuel, and discharge the old fuel that was used up. Okay? So then there's a refueling pool here on that side, right? I just mentioned it. The pool, the top of that deck for the pool is about the 63-foot elevation, again 33 feet above us. It's full of water, demineralized water, that kept the fuel cool while it was there. So that water was circulated through heat exchangers when we were operating, through heat exchangers, and the heat was eventually discharged to the ocean. The heat, not the water.
Yeah.
Okay? After we shut down the plant, they're not here anymore, but we installed some basically air conditioning units, big refrigeration units that were here, and we used those to cool the pool water until we could get all the fuel out, okay, and in the dry storage. Okay, so that's what this building was used for, housing new fuel and used fuel, and then what we call spent fuel, and then eventually today they're empty of the fuel. All that's left in there now is water. They'll be taken out of the pool, the water will be discharged from the canister will be dried, a lid like this about 9 inches thick would be welded on the top of it, then the canister would be handled through this hatch onto a waiting transporter here, and then hauled over to the dry storage facility, where it will be placed inside of a vault.
Wow.
We call this a restricted area, okay? But it doesn't have any nuclear security attributes to it today. That's because all the spent nuclear fuel has been removed, okay? And after it was removed, we reduced this area to what we call a restricted area. Before then, when we had fuel here, it was called a protected area. And the ability to get in here was very, very restricted and controlled. And the perimeter of this entire site, from the seawall around here to the north side there, was guarded by this fence. And this fence was an active fence. If you approached the fence, it would alarm. And there's camera systems no longer in use, but you'll see cameras all over the place here that were monitored, looking for, you know, any potential intruders that would be trying to get into the plant. So the plant was very well guarded from a nuclear safety point of view when we were operating and while we had spent nuclear fuel here. Today, the only protected area that remains for the plant is around the ISFAC, so or dry storage facility. You know, if you want to take a radiation measurement.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I hear something else. It sounds like a Ludlam in here. Oh, there it is.
Right there.
I noticed that chirp. Nothing at all. Yeah, that's background. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you were able to get past this, you can see inside, we've actually removed some of the internal bioshield walls already. And even though those really thick structures are removed, you're not seeing any appreciable change in radiation out here. What are you moving, Jeff?
Since this video is getting a little long, I'm going to split this trip into 2 parts. The second half is going to be dealing with the radiological controlled area, or the RCA, where we get scanned a couple times along with our camera gear before entering and exiting.
It's like the beginning of The Running Man.
And in this area, we get to see the spent fuel pool. And then we get to take a trip out to see where the spent fuel now resides. So if you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, so that'll be it for tonight's podcast. Catch us Monday, I believe, will be the next podcast. Till then, I will see you then.